Chapter 1197. Peaceful times always passed by unknowingly. 5 days later, with the hard work of everyone in Xuanzhen, Chun Xiang finally gathered all the materials before the competition. It couldn't be helped. The professional league was just around the corner, and the arena was filled with high-level players who were training for the upcoming competition. Although Xuanzhen's group wasn't weak, they couldn't compete with Wang Yu's efficiency. Wang Yu's 1v1 style was relatively simple, but it was more troublesome to find the opponent. With Wang Yu's strength, it wouldn't even take 10 minutes to find the opponent and kill him. If he met a straightforward opponent in the middle, Wang Yu could end the battle in less than a minute. However, group battles were far different from 1v1 battles. Not only did it require courage, but it also required fighting spirit. Sometimes, when they met an evenly matched opponent, a stalemate would take at least an hour. Everyone would only fight a dozen or so matches in a day without doing anything. With this kind of efficiency, it was already very good to gather all the materials in 5 days. In the forging workshop of Xuanzhen's guild encampment, Wang Yu stood in front of an operating table. Chun Xiang's staff was placed on the operating table. Xuanzhen's members surrounded Wang Yu, and some even stretched their necks to watch blacksmith Wang work. If there were no accidents, this would be the first time they saw the process of creating a godly weapon. The worst thing about using the black crystal to absorb attributes was the fear of absorbing the wrong attribute. After all, the black crystal was very expensive. Fortunately, Chun Xiang's staff only had one attribute, so they didn't have to worry about this. Wang Yu placed the staff on the operating table and opened the attribute extraction interface. He then placed the black crystal in and clicked on the extraction button. After a flash of light, Chun Xiang's staff couldn't withstand the surging mana and turned into powder. Awesome, be careful. Seeing the staff disappear, Chun Xiang's heart almost jumped out his chest. However, when he saw the attributes of the staff successfully extracted by the black crystal, Chun Xiang calmed down. Meow. Chun Xiang's life depended on this skill. If the staff was destroyed, Chun Xiang would have to delete his account. Wang Yu naturally knew how important this magic staff was to Chun Xiang. After completing the first step, he carefully took out the grasp of darkness and placed it on the operating table. Then he said, "Don't panic, don't panic. My hands will tremble when you're nervous. Don't fail the synthesis again." Everyone held their breath when they heard this. To be on the safe side, Wang Yu also hung the craftsman god title above his head. Although the attributes of the god of crafts would take effect regardless of whether Wang Yu hung up the title or not, Wang Yu still felt that it was safer. After all, items that were based on chance did not require much control. Wang Yu had to put in a lot of effort to fight. Following the system's instructions, Wang Yu placed the black crystal into the slot at the bottom after placing the materials into the material column. However, at this moment, another box suddenly appeared in the black crystal synthesis material column. System notice: you have a medium on you. Do you wish to use it? Medium? Wang Yu was slightly stunned. He quickly looked at the description of the box that had appeared. Using a medium can greatly increase the success rate of synthesis. There is also a certain chance to obtain additional attributes or mutate the synthesized attribute. Seeing this description, Wang Yu did not hesitate to use it. To Wang Yu, whether or not he could obtain a mutated attribute was not important. What was important was the success rate. Otherwise, if he lost the staff, even if Chun Xiang did not blame him, Wang Yu would feel bad. After clicking use, a black notebook appeared in the medium column. This medium was the Talon's diary that Wang Yu had used for some unknown purpose. After adjusting his emotions, Wang Yu clicked on the synthesis button. At the same time, a dark cloud suddenly floated over the sky above Yuhuicheng. The dark cloud shrouded the sky above the Xuanzhen camp, and arcs of lightning flashed. The loading bar for the equipment synthesis continued. Everyone had also noticed this strange phenomenon in the sky, so they quickly looked out. When they saw the clouds in the sky, they were instantly reminded of the scene when Wang Yu first forged the divine weapon. However, it was auspicious clouds combined with holy light that time, and dark clouds this time. 3 minutes later, the loading bar for the equipment synthesis was finally completed. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky finally condensed into a bolt of lightning. The lightning bolt penetrated the roof of the forging workshop and landed on the grip of darkness on the console. At the same time, the system announcement sounded. The sound of darkness is getting closer. The horn of war is about to sound. Player Iron Ox has successfully broken the seal of 10,000 years and released the eternal divine weapon of the Nephilim. Darkness has returned to the land. This moment will be remembered in history. As the system announcement sounded, the light on the console dissipated and the new equipment was revealed. The three huge gems were still dazzling, but the original strange skull shape had turned into a half-moon shape. The handle of the staff was densely engraved with magic inscriptions, and a black aura flowed around the staff, attracting everyone's attention. Wang Yu wiped the sweat off his forehead and casually opened the attributes display. True Dark Phantom Moon Staff, Legendary, Attack, 300-300 mana, 500-500 plus 50 Intelligence, plus 50 Spirit, plus 50 Vitality Stone of the Undead. Passive Skill, Dark Magic Proficiency plus 1 Blood Erosion. Passive Skill, Magic Attacks have a 20% lifesteal effect. Spirit of the Shadow Moon. Passive Skill, Magic Attacks will return 80% of the skill's mana. Shadow Moon Blood Spring. Active Skill, consumes life force to transform into a blood spring. In the state of Dark Blood Spring, the player's movement speed is increased by 20%. During this period, the player cannot be selected as a target. Enemies above the blood spring will have their movement speed reduced by 40% and receive magic damage. 20% of the damage to the target will be converted into the player's HP. Dark Blood Sacrifice. Active Skill, consumes life force to perform a blood sacrifice to revive one summoned unit. Summon Evil Spirit, LV3. Assimilation Mutation Active Skill, summons 10 powerful demons to assist in battle. The evil spirits have 150% of the summoner stats. Skill level can be raised to LV3. Book of Sealing for every level up of the summoned target. Their stats will increase by 1%. The level cannot be higher than the summoner. The summoned target's level will be reset upon death. Level requirement. 50 profession requirement. General item introduction. The Shadow Moon Staff is one of the demon race's 3 divine weapons. It was also the demon race's 5th demon lord, Moon Demon's personal weapon. On the day of Moon Demon's death, the Shadow Moon Staff was destroyed and turned into 3 undead gems. In order to reconstruct the Shadow Moon Staff, Tyran went through untold hardships to obtain the undead gems. However, the Shadow Moon Staff's ultimate magic is nowhere to be found. The method to reconstruct the Shadow Moon Staff is recorded in Tyran's diary. Chapter 1198. Divine Weapon. Seeing the attributes of the Shadow Moon Staff, the Quanjin players cried out in unison. Although the Grasp of Darkness was an epic equipment from the start, and everyone was mentally prepared, they still could not help but cry out. This is a real divine artifact. Speaking of epic equipment, it was not like they had never seen one before. Wang Yu's cloak was one, but compared to the Shadow Moon Staff, Wang Yu's cloak's crappy attributes could not even be considered a pseudo-divine weapon. The Shadow Moon Staff was one of the 3 great divine weapons of the Dark faction. Magic Mastery, Lifesteal, and Mana Regeneration went without saying. Every one of these was an attribute that mages dreamed of. The Shadow Moon Blood Spring and Shadow Moon Light greatly increased the user's survivability and damage output. This was especially so for the summon spell that had been upgraded to the highest level. It was definitely a bug. In Rebirth's dark spell summoning system, there were souls, skeletons, and flesh from the highest to the lowest. Chunxiang Summon Imp was originally a top-level soul summoning spell. After assimilating Summon Skeleton and Summon Undead, this skill had mutated into the ultimate Summon Evil Spirit. The level 3 Summon Evil Spirit could summon 10 units at once, each with 150% of the summoner's attributes. With the support of the Book of Sealing, each unit at its peak would have 200% of the summoner's attributes. This was not just an increase in quantity, but also a leap in quality. It was 11 against 1. One could imagine how terrifying Chun Xiang would be when he charged around with 10 powerful underlings. It was no wonder the warlock class was so weak in the game. It turned out that the final state of the class was so terrifying. Chun Xiang, who had endured the most bitter of hardships, could only be described as a master. Chun Xiang's current mood was self-evident after changing his slingshot. The Quan Jun players banged their heads against the wall in pain, crying bitterly. Even Li Shui and the other life profession players were envious, wondering if they should get themselves a piece of equipment to play with. F***CK. Is it too late for me to delete my account now? Uncle Nyo, I don't care. You have to give me a divine artifact. To place one's pride hugged Wang Yu's thigh and refused to let go. Wang Yu shrugged helplessly. Do you think divine artifacts are cabbages? I can only say that Brother Chun is lucky. How can it not be good? He already has 2 legendary equipment. Everyone was extremely jealous of Chun Xiang. 2. Wang Yu was slightly taken aback. At this time, Chun Xiang also raised the Book of Sealing in his hand. Wang Yu had almost forgotten that the Book of Sealing in this old man's hands was also a legendary item. No wonder this guy, as a warlock, was so tyrannical in one-on-one fights. If a worker wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. After equipping the Staff of Shadow Moon, Chun Xiang finally had a real weapon. Just as everyone was about to check out the power of Chun Xiang's new equipment, Wang Yu received a message from Evildoers Run Wild. F***CK. You got something good again. Where are you fighting the boss? Evildoers Run Wild anxiously asked. The system announcement said that Wang Yu had unsealed the divine artifact. It wasn't just Evildoers Run Wild. Almost everyone thought that Wang Yu had done a divine artifact quest. Guild encampment. Wang Yu calmly replied. Evildoers Run Wild was surprised. Guild encampment? You're going back so soon? What do you mean going back so soon? Wang Yu said, I've always been at the encampment. Then your divine artifact, I just fused it. Wang Yu answered truthfully. Evildoers Run Wild sent a row of ellipses and said after a long time, I'm going to your guild encampment now. Don't say that you fused the equipment later. Yeah. Wang Yu was confused. At this time, a notification flashed in the guild channel. Wuji invites Evildoers Run Wild and Iron Ox's father to enter the guild encampment. At the same time, a light flashed at the encampment teleportation point outside the workshop, and 2 figures, one tall and one short, appeared. Wang Yu, no wonder. No wonder. If Old Cow knew that Wang Yu had gotten another divine artifact, Evildoers Run Wild would probably be exploited again. It couldn't be helped. Evildoers Run Wild couldn't beat these 2 shameless people. If he fell behind, he would be beaten up. Who else would he exploit if not him? At that time, Evildoers Run Wild could only be heard shouting, Where are they? Where the hell did they go? Come and welcome the distinguished guests. Everyone had seen the notification in the guild channel and heard Evildoers Run Wild shout, so they quickly ran out of the workshop. Wang Yu quickly went up to greet him. Dad, you're here? Hello, Uncle Wang. The others also greeted him. Yes. Old Cow responded casually. He then looked at the people in Xuanjin and pointed at the workshop. What is that place? It was a workshop. There was only one console, and the space was very small. The old man was very curious when he saw nearly 20 people in Xuanjin coming out of such a small room. Uncle Wang, this is... To place one's pride hurt him and was about to tell Old Cow that it was a workshop. Wang Yu quickly stopped to place one's pride. He then smiled and changed the topic. Dad, what are you doing here? Seeing Wang Yu's little action, Old Cow frowned and said, to give money. Give money? Wang Yu was confused. What money? Old Cow stared at him. Didn't your brother say that you guys are participating in some competition and lack sponsors? Oh yes. Wang Yu nodded. I've discussed with a few masters in the Kung Fu circle and decided to sponsor you guys. Didn't your brother tell you about this? As he said that, Old Cow looked at Evildoers Run Wild again. Wang Yu immediately understood and then glared at Evildoers Run Wild. Good lad. He actually used the money that originally belonged to him to be a good person. He even had the cheek to ask his own team to advertise for him. He was really sly. Evildoers Run Wild looked nervous. He quickly put his palms together and sent a message to Wang Yu. "Brother, my dear brother, it doesn't matter whose name it is. Don't betray me. I said it." At this time, Wu Ji was more tactful. He quickly came out to smooth things over. "Uncle Wang, let's go back to the house and talk." As he said that, Wu Ji made a gesture of invitation to the meeting hall. This was not only Wang Yu's father, but also the real boss. It was reasonable for him to not let people stand in the courtyard. "It's good that you said it." Old Cow nodded. He glanced at evildoers run wild and said, "I'm afraid that this lad will do something sneaky, so I came here personally today. There's no need to sit. How many of you go and sign up first? Then, let Little Fay book tickets and hotel rooms for you." As the saying goes, no one knows a son better than his father. Old Cow really did not eat for nothing. Without waiting for Wang Yu and the others to reply, Old Cow said, "Does the sponsor have the right to let the team advertise?" "That's right," Wu Ji said. Chapter 1199. "I have no objections." Wu Ji quickly said, "Of course I have no objections." The client was the Jade Emperor, after all. He was paid to do things for him. Since the Old Cow was sponsoring them, it was reasonable for him to advertise for them. Moreover, the Old Cow's requirements were not high. He only wanted them to wear clothes that he had custom-made. Since the Jade Emperor had spoken, even if the Old Cow wanted everyone to wear female clothing on stage, Wu Ji would have no objections. Of course, Wang Yu was the Old Cow's biological son. Naturally, the Old Cow would not make such an unreasonable request. "It's good that you have no objections. On the day of the competition, I will bring all the martial artists to cheer for you." The Old Cow nodded in satisfaction. Then he turned his head and said to the squinting evildoers run wild, "Prepare the materials. When your brother is done with the competition, I will ask him to make equipment for me." "Ah." Evildoers run wild had an innocent look on his face. "What equipment? What equipment? Don't talk nonsense with me." The Old Cow pointed at the forging workshop and said, "Do you think your father doesn't know how to play games?" Evildoers run wild's face instantly turned bitter. "Why are you relying on me?" "Nonsense." The Old Cow said angrily, "I asked you to do something, and you're playing tricks on me. Prepare the materials, and I will not pursue this matter. Otherwise, just you wait and see." After intimidating evildoers run wild, the Old Cow cupped his fist at the Chuanjian people and said, "Thank you for your trouble. If there's nothing else, I will go and challenge the instance dungeon." The way the Old Cow spoke and did things was exactly the same as Wang Yu's. They were clean and efficient, without any hesitation. As he spoke, Old Cow turned around and walked into the teleportation nexus, disappearing from everyone's sight. Only the dumbfounded Quanjin members and evildoers run wild were left behind. To place one's pride, Old Cow was reluctant to leave. "You're leaving so soon. Aren't you going to sit down and have a few drinks?" "Drink your head." Evildoers run wild slapped to place one's pride's head and said, if he had stayed a little longer, my workshop would have been his. "Really?" Everyone was shocked and asked Wang Yu in unison. Wang Yu fell silent. According to Wang Yu's experience as a son for more than 20 years, what evildoers run wild said was absolutely not an exaggeration. TSK, TSK, TSK. Wu Ji and the others clicked their tongues and shook their heads. It's a pity that he didn't come to Chuanjian to develop. If he comes, I can let him take the top spot. F***CK. Wang Yu fiercely gave everyone the middle finger. It had to be said that the reason why Wang Yu could tolerate these evil people in Chuanjian was not without reason. No wonder people often said that there was no love without reason. Just as Wang Yu and the Quanjin members were talking nonsense, evildoers run wild forcibly interrupted them. "All right, you guys, how many people are going?" The evildoer Hung Xing had just been extorted, so he was not in a good mood. No one dared to provoke him, so everyone quickly shut up. Wu Ji pondered for a moment before replying. "A battle team is made up of 12 people. At least 12 people will be going." "What about logistics? Are we going?" Evildoers Run Wild looked around and asked, "Are we going?" Wu Ji very politely asked Li Shui and the others for their opinion. "Can we go too?" Li Shui and the others were overjoyed when Wu Ji invited them to go. Even Chopper 345 looked eager. As for whether they should go or not, the answer was already very clear. After all, the girls used to be the lowest of the professional players, gold collecting members. The Pro League was a long way away from them. Let alone participating in the competition, they had never even thought about watching a live match. How could they not be excited when they heard that they had a chance to go? If you want to go, then go. I don't care about that little bit of money. Evildoers Run Wild mumbled, counting Li Shui and the others together. TSK, TSK, TSK. While mumbling, Evildoers Run Wild shook his head and said, 11 players, 1 leader, 5 logistics, a total of 17 people. Look at the number of people in your guild. Even if you send out your entire guild, you won't be able to form a team. I'll reluctantly count myself in as a lucky number. What are you going to do? Wang Yu is a little dissatisfied. You're not a member of our Chuanjin guild. Be a foreign aid? Do you think I'm not strong enough? Evildoers Run Wild retorted. You're okay for now. Wang Yu did not raise any objections. Even if the evildoer rampage met an expert like Wang Yu, he would still be a long way off. However, compared to an ordinary person, he was still considered to have some skills. Wang Yu was an honest person, so naturally, he would not go against his conscience. After confirming the number of people, Evildoers Run Wild went offline to prepare. After the members of Quan Jun cleared the arena together, they logged off early for the first time in a while. After all, there were only 2 days left before the competition. What everyone needed to do now was to rest and recharge. According to the usual practice, the participating teams needed to familiarize themselves with the venue the day before the competition. So when they received Evildoers Run Wild's ticket booking message, they all rushed to Linhai City. Rebirth was a game that had a huge influence on society. With the professional league around the corner, the atmosphere in the airport was different from usual. As soon as they got off the plane, Wang Yu and the others saw all kinds of young people chatting and laughing. These people were in groups of a few dozen, all wearing the same uniform with a fancy logo on it. They were obviously the legendary professional players. In comparison, Wang Yu was a little more embarrassed. With a group of girls following behind him, any normal man would want to find a hole to hide in. It was the first time Li Shui and the others were so close to professional players, so they were a little excited. Wow, it's Team Skyfire. The leader must be the legendary Samadhi Truefire. Look at that handsome guy. Isn't he Red Dreams, Red Beauty? Isn't that 9 states, 5 lakes, 4 seas? I'm dying of happiness. The personalities of the girls who chased after idols were always a little strange, as if they were being sold on a multi-level marketing. The girls chattered nonstop behind her, giving Wang Yu a headache. She wished she could stuff these girls into the trash can. He thought the situation would get better once they got out of the airport, but it was even worse outside. Countless fans were blocking the exit with banners. The taxi drivers waiting for customers were drowned in the sea of people's war. This is ridiculous. Wang Yu, who had finally squeezed his way out of the fan club, could not help but break out in cold sweat. He really could not understand why there were so many obsessed fans of a game. This is nothing. Molly said as if she had seen it all too often. I've seen things that are even more exaggerated. There was one time when XX Team's XXX was tricked by a rookie during a competition. His fans were not happy about it and nearly caused a riot at the scene. In the end, even the special forces came to maintain order. TSK Tisk. Wang Yu couldn't help but sigh. What do you think they'll do if they see their idol get beaten up by me? Ugh. Chapter 1200. Linhai City was located in the coastal area. Except for Mingji and Daoxue, everyone was relatively far away. Evildoers Run Wild was very considerate to buy tickets at noon. Therefore, when Wang Yu's group gathered in Linhai City, it was already evening. After dinner, the Chuanjin group came to the hotel where they were staying under the leadership of Evildoers Run Wild. It was undeniable that although Evildoers Run Wild liked to be sneaky, they would not cut corners. The hotel that Evildoers Run Wild booked was opposite the competition venue. It was a gaming-themed hotel. The environment and atmosphere were very suitable for this group of gaming geeks, and the grade seemed to be quite high. When they came to the entrance of the hotel and saw the name of the hotel, Wuji and the others couldn't help but exclaim, "I didn't expect that we can still stay in the best once in our lifetime. Old devil, you're quite capable." "Of course," Evildoers Run Wild said proudly. "It is the competition season now. Only participating teams can stay here. Ordinary people can't stay here. Come, our room is on the 7th floor." Evildoers Run Wild took out the room cards and distributed them to everyone while showing off. Then, he led Wang Yu's group to the elevator. Just as everyone was waiting for the elevator, a group of people walked over in a mighty manner. This team was all dressed in black uniforms. The team members were all well-built. They didn't look like gaming geeks at all. On the chest area of their shirts, the word Dark Moon was embroidered. The group of people came to the elevator and stood opposite the Chuanjin group. Then, Wuji looked at the Chuanjin group from head to toe. To be precise, he looked at the girls of Chuanjin. At the same time, there was a trace of wretchedness in the eyes of this group of guys, and a smirk on their faces. There were originally fewer female players in the gaming circle than male players. The number of female players who could play in a professional competition could be counted with one hand. Chuanjin had a total of 7 girls, which was indeed a bit rare. It was reasonable to be stared at. However, the naked gazes of this group of people made him very uncomfortable. When Wang Yu saw this, he frowned slightly. He took a step forward and stood in front of Mu Zixian. The rest of the Chuanjin people understood and stood in front of the ladies. Seeing that someone had suddenly blocked their view, the group was obviously a little unhappy. However, when they saw that Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild were tall and strong, and Mingdu and Bao San looked ferocious and did not look like good people, their momentum immediately wilted. The group of people were stunned for a moment, then retracted their gazes. Then, they casually smiled and asked, "Which team are you from? I don't think we've met you before." The gaming circle was very small, and the pro circle was even smaller. No matter what kind of relationship these pro-level experts had, they would all be familiar faces. Wang Yu and the others were all newcomers, so of course they had never seen them before. As the saying goes, you don't slap a smiling face. Since this black shirt battle team player took the initiative to ask, Wang Yu wasn't a cold person, so he replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "A motley crew." "A motley crew?" The black shirt battle team thought for a moment, then smiled and asked, "Is there such a team participating this time?" "No, I've never heard of it." The others shook their heads and asked, "Is it a new team? Which guild are you from?" Seeing that these people did not recognize his team, Wang Yu's face darkened and he said, "We are the representative team chosen by the 7th Battle Zone." "Oh!" The black shirt battle team suddenly understood. No wonder, no wonder. You guys have to work hard. I hope I can meet you guys." Hearing that Wang Yu and the others were a grassroots team, these people's attitude suddenly changed 180 degrees. Although their words were nice and encouraging, as long as one wasn't an idiot, they could hear the mockery in these people's words. It couldn't be helped. Although they were all gamers, it was a tradition since ancient times for high-ranking players to look down on low-ranking players. As for pro players, they were even more disdainful of amateurs, especially this group of people. Their disdain came from their bones. F***CK. Hearing that, the Chuanjin battle team clenched their fists. This group of troublemakers from Chuanjin had always been fearless. How could they tolerate such mockery from others? If it wasn't for the fear of being banned for causing a violent incident, with Ming Du's bad temper, he would have already made a move based on the last sentence of this group of people. Hee. At that time, Wuji chuckled and asked Chun Xiang next to him, "Brother Chun, have you heard of the Dark Moon battle team?" Chun Xiang smiled and glanced at the black shirt battle team. He nodded and said, "I've heard of it. It's a famous third-rate battle team. Who hasn't heard of it?" Wang Yu asked in confusion. "There's a third-rate battle team? What kind of logic is this?" Mingji and Daoshua also joined in and said, "Their battle record is a mess, but their team members like to hit their girlfriends to gain exposure. Everyone on Earth knows about this. TSK, so they're so famous. How shameless." The others shook their heads and sighed, supporting Mingji and Daoshua. Hearing the words of Qiuanjin, the faces of the Dark Moon battle team members on the opposite side instantly darkened. Blue veins popped up on their foreheads. One of the team members with a big build pointed at Wuji and said angrily, "Say that again." Wuji smiled and said, "How embarrassing would it be for me to say it just because you asked me to say it? I'm not your girlfriend. Do you still dare to hit me? Damn it." The team member roared and raised his fist to hit Wuji. Wuji took a step forward fearlessly and put his face under the man's fist. Then he pointed at his own face with one hand and pointed at the surveillance camera on the roof with the other. He said like a rascal, "Come on, hit me. If you hit me, we'll have one less opponent. It's not a loss this time." The man's body shook violently when he heard that, and he put down his raised fist while trembling. The people behind him were also shocked. They looked at Wuji with increasingly cold eyes. Wuji was right. Under the camera, whoever dared to make a move would be banned. If they were not convinced, they could try. Although the Dark Moon battle team was not a first-class battle team, as a professional master, they were also very conceited. Naturally, they were unwilling to lose the competition because of a grassroots battle team. At this time, when Wuji and the others exposed their scars like this, they could only endure it secretly. After all, they were a professional team. Ordinary people knew about their dark history, and it wouldn't be easy for them to expose them. However, they didn't know anything about the Quanjin sect at all. Naturally, they wouldn't be able to win an argument with them. Even if they knew about the Quanjin sect, would the shameless Quanjin sect be afraid of them? "You'd better not let us see you in the arena." The big guy glared at Wuji fiercely and said, "Let's go." As he said that, he led his team members in the direction of the stairs. Wuji replied with a smile, "You should be glad that you don't meet us. Otherwise, we will slap you in front of the national audience, just like how you hit your girlfriend." Damn. Chapter 12:01. You guys know those guys. After the Dark Moon battle team and the others left, Wang Yu asked curiously. "It's the Dark Moon battle team," Wuji said, "only you don't know them. The one who wanted to beat me up is their captain. His name is Death Dark Moon. He's a complete idiot. Once, he couldn't beat his opponent during a live broadcast, so he beat up his own girlfriend. That's how he became famous." F***CK. Mu Zixin said angrily, "Beating up a woman useless? We'll beat them to death if we meet them." "That's right." Yang Na and Ling Longmeng also agreed, "Leave this to us. This kind of person isn't banned." Wang Yu was even more stunned. Kindness limited Wang Yu's imagination. It was the first time he heard of such a thing. Banned, Wuji said. His original team terminated the contract with him. Later, this bastard found a rich man and reorganized the Dark Moon battle team. He's the captain. F***CK. What company actually supports this kind of person? Wang Yu exclaimed. Character was the soul of a team. Most of the audience now had righteous values. They naturally couldn't tolerate sand in their eyes. Even this kind of scum supported a financial group. Either there was a hole in their brain, or they didn't care about their reputation at all. Famous Sword Dao Shua, who had always been knowledgeable, said, "It seems to be a pirated website." Pirated website? Yes. Famous Sword Dao Shua said, "It's the kind of pirated novels. That stupid website is really arrogant. Novels like I'm a Big Player and Godly Mechanical Hunter have all been pirated by this website." No wonder. Wang Yu understood. He frowned and said, "These bastards really flock together. They should be punished severely." However, pirated novels are also involved in the gaming circle, because there are online games for novels too. Novels like I'm a Martial Artist in Online Games are also pirated by them. F***CK. Wang Yu is furious. If we meet them in the arena, we must beat them to death. No one can hold back. After a long journey, everyone was a little tired. They returned to their respective rooms and slept early. It was only 7 o'clock the next morning when Evildoers Run Wild woke everyone up. "Why are you waking us so early?" It definitely didn't feel good to be woken up while they were sleeping soundly. Even if the one who had woken them up was a monster like Rampage, they still didn't hold back and rebuked him. Evildoers Run Wild said, "Sleep my A*SS. The organizer staff will pick the teams to go and familiarize them with the venue. If you sleep, you won. You won't be able to make it. Sister Nyo, Master, Sister Nyo, do you know about this? When everyone heard this, they all looked at Mu Zixien, who was napping on Wang Yu's arm. Team, Mu team. The organizer would have told Mu team members Mu squad team leader. Mu team. Bye. Who knew that when Mu Zixien was asked this question, she immediately sat up, widened her eyes, and said in a daze, I don't know. No one informed me. It's good that they didn't tell you. Evildoers Run Wild said helplessly. They only informed professional teams. For amateur teams like yours, what difference does it make if you're familiar with them or not? You'll be beaten up by professional players anyway. This is insider information, so I called you guys early in the morning. F***CK. When they heard this, the Chuanjian people's anger surged to their heads in an instant. Meow. Although Demon Rampage was right, and it was reasonable for the organizers to do so, it was a completely different concept when it happened to others and when it happened to me. If it were any other amateur team, they would be satisfied to be able to watch the competition from the VIP seats for free and have the chance to fight against professional players. However, although the people of the Chuanjian sect looked crazy, they were all proud people with their eyes at the top of their heads. Their goal this time was to become the champion. How could this group of arrogant fellows endure such preferential treatment from the organizers? The violent Mingdu immediately cursed in dissatisfaction. Mother of Cur, looking down on others. I'm not going to fight in this competition. As he cursed, he wanted to flip the table. Unfortunately, the tables in the hotel were made of marble. Mingdu flipped it a few times, but it didn't budge at all. Everyone else's expressions were also very strange. They were all scowling, but they agreed with Mingdu's words. All right, don't be angry. Seeing that everyone was about to leave, Wuji hurriedly stood up and said, What nonsense are you saying? Old man Wang's money has already been paid, and we're going back without even showing our faces? Who are we letting down? But they're going too far. To place one's pride, said in an extremely unbalanced manner. Hee. Wuji smiled and said, It's not that the organizers are bullying you, it's that your mentality is wrong. The organizers have clearly differentiated between amateurs and professionals from the very beginning. It's you guys who insisted on competing with professional teams. But no buts. To place one's pride was just about to say something when Wuji rudely interrupted him. It's still the same thing. Your strength determines your position in the hearts of others. We're here because we're targeting the name of an amateur team. Others will naturally treat us as amateurs. If you want others to change their opinion of you, the only way is to fight properly and display your strength. Understand? This, out of all the capable people in Chuanjian, only Wuji could be the boss. The key was that this guy knew how to act according to the situation. After being reprimanded by Wuji, the originally angry Chuanjian members immediately calmed down. Yes. Evildoers Run Wild also echoed from his side. What Boss Wuji said is what I wanted to say. This time, I personally promise everyone that as long as everyone can get a good ranking, I'll give everyone extra rewards. The higher your ranking, the better the reward. As the richest person in the gaming circle, Evildoers Run Wild's words were still very tempting. The people of the Chuanjian sect had already been convinced by Wuji. It was only because they wanted to save face that they did not express their admiration to Wuji. Now that the demon was running amok, he struck while the iron was hot. Everyone finally had a way out. Everyone pointed at Wuji and said, This time, it's because of Nyogu and Old Man Nyo's sponsorship, as well as Boss Yao's reward. It's not because of you. Do whatever you want. Wuji spread his hands, indicating that he was already used to it. After breakfast, around 8 o'clock, the staff of the organizer also arrived at the hotel. All the teams gathered outside the lobby and then walked together to the opposite arena. Along the way, there was a lot of chatter. Looking over, it was the staff members who were communicating with the experts. The staff members were also ordinary people. It was inevitable for them to be so close to their idol. Guru, I'm your diehard fan. Guru, what's your blood type? Guru, give me an autograph. Chapter 1202. On the other hand, Qiuanjin's team was in an awkward situation. Apart from the professional players who were surprised by the proportion of female players in Qiuanjin's team, no one tried to strike up a conversation with them. However, this was good for everyone. Just like that, Wang Yu's team followed behind the team and entered the arena. After entering the arena, everyone finally saw what it meant to be rich. Longting Company was indeed the leader in the domestic industry. The scale of the arena was so large that it could compete with the Bird's Nest in the capital. Not to mention building such a venue. Even renting it would cost an astronomical figure. The layout of the arena was the same as the public arena in the game. It was surrounded by spectator seats, and in the middle was the arena with holographic projection. The game process of the players' game characters would be projected on the arena so that everyone would feel like they were there. Above the arena, there was a large 360-degree screen with no blind spots, so that the audience could see and hear more clearly. Isn't that Nyoga? Just when everyone was marveling at the generosity of Longting Company, a voice suddenly came from not far away. Hearing the voice, Wang Yu and the others quickly looked in the direction of the voice and saw a team standing not far away. The person who spoke was a young man with a very clean temperament, but Wang Yu had no impression of him at all. However, the leader of the team looked very familiar. When Wu Ji, Chun Xiang, and the others saw the leader of the opposite team, they all said unkindly, F***CK? It's really a small world for enemies. When the leader saw Wu Ji and the others, he also raised his middle finger with both hands. Seeing this scene, Wang Yu finally realized that this group of people turned out to be Dugu Juqiang's team. Obviously, the only person who could appear on this occasion and know Wang Yu is Lei Gongdang. Thinking of this, Wang Yu smiled and waved his hand. Little Lei, right? Why do you look completely different from the game? Lei Gongdang smiled and said, You can still recognize me. It seems that I haven't adjusted my appearance enough. Let me introduce you. These are my teammates. As he spoke, Lei Gongdi enthusiastically introduced him to the brothers behind him. This is Brother Iron Ox that I often tell you about. Hello, Brother Iron Ox. I've heard a lot about you. Lei Gongding seemed to have mentioned Wang Yu to his friends many times. After seeing Wang Yu, the group of young people all showed expressions of admiration. You flatter me. Wang Yu waved his hand humbly. TSK, TSK, TSK. As expected of Old Cow. He's so popular even in the pro circle. Upon seeing this, the Qiuanjin people could not help but click their tongues. Qiuanjin was well aware of Dugu Juqiang's character. Although both sides would fight whenever they met, to be able to be considered as an opponent by Qiuanjin, Dugu Juqiang's reputation was definitely not undeserved. Lei Gongshou had always been known as the #1 shield warrior in the server. Those who could be his teammates were naturally top-tier experts. Seeing so many experts being so respectful to Wang Yu, Qiuanjin's players were all fascinated. However, at this moment, a tall and skinny guy with hair that stood on end crossed his arms and coldly laughed. You're the so-called #1 expert, Iron Ox? It's not a title. It's a title of respect, Lei Gongshou corrected. That person glared at Lei Gongshou and said indifferently, I didn't ask you. Lei Gongshou rolled his eyes and did not continue. Wang Yu laughed and said, It's just an empty title. Oomph. That person coldly snorted and said, Since you dare to call yourself an empty title, it looks like you have some skill. When the time comes, let's spar on the stage and see who's the #1 in the world. F***CK. F***CK. Hearing that guy's words, everyone in Qiuanjin was stunned. Qiuanjin had seen people who dared to challenge Wang Yu before, but this was the first time they had heard someone speak in such a tone. Let's see who's the #1 in the world. Although he did not mean to look down on Wang Yu, it felt like the #1 expert in the world was either Wang Yu or him. Since when did such an arrogant person appear at the end of the world? After exclaiming in surprise, Mingdu looked up at Dugu Juqiang and asked, Songxin, who the F***CK is this? Songxin my *SS. Scram. Dugu Juqiang scolded Mingdu, but did not reply. That person laughed and said, Lin Ziyuan. Who is that? Mingdu was at a loss for a moment and said unhappily, "Tell me your game ID." However, before that person could reply, Ming Jian Daoxue exclaimed, "Ning, Ning Jing Ziyuan?" "That's right." Ning Jing Ziyuan nodded proudly. This time, not only Mingdu, Bao San, and the others, but even the usually calm Wuji could not help but be surprised. God of War, Ning Jing Ziyuan? No wonder an expert like Lei Gongdang did not dare to talk back after being scolded by this guy. No wonder this guy spoke like he was the #1 expert in the world. It turned out that he was the legendary God of War, Ning Jing Ziyuan. Who would have thought that Dugu Jiuqiang was so good at playing around and even invited this mysterious guy? Dugu Jiuqiang saw the expressions of the people in Xuanzhen and laughed. He copied Wang Yu's tone and laughed. False reputation. It's just a false reputation. Ning Jingziyuan seemed to enjoy the surprised expressions of others and did not say anything even if Dugu Jiuqiang interrupted. Only Wang Yu was confused and asked, "Oh, is he very powerful?" Awkward silence. An absolute awkward silence. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Ning Jingziyuan's face instantly darkened. Other than the people in Xuanzhen, very few people knew that Wang Yu was a new player. Now, Wang Yu's behavior was considered provocation in a good way, but it was called picking a fight in a bad way. If Ning Jingziyuan did not think highly of himself and did not want to lower himself to Wang Yu's level, he would have probably started cursing. Fortunately, Chun Xiang was good at handling things. Seeing the awkward atmosphere, he immediately tried to smooth things over. "He's not just powerful, he's awesome." "Really? How awesome?" Wang Yu asked again. "Let's put it this way." Chun Xiang explained. "Before you started playing the game, your current position was his. He also did all the things that you did." Oh. Wang Yu nodded repeatedly. After knowing that his opponent was an expert even more powerful than Lei Gongdang, Wang Yu cupped his fists and said, "I hope I can compete with you." As soon as Wang Yu said this, the originally relaxed atmosphere became even more awkward. This time, Wang Yu was definitely sincere in wanting to compete with Ning Jingziyuan. However, he had just expressed his disdain for Ning Jingziyuan, and now he wanted to compete with Ning Jingziyuan. It was clearly a declaration of war. Ning Jingziyuan snorted coldly and turned his head to the side. Wang Yu was still confused and mumbled, "Why is he like this?" Everyone, the atmosphere was very awkward. All right. Fortunately, Wuji broke the awkwardness in time. "Let's familiarize ourselves with the venue first." Then Wuji and the others pulled Wang Yu away. "Goodbye, everyone." Wang Yu greeted Lei Gongdang and the others politely, then said to Ning Jingzan, "I'll be waiting for you." The Chuanjin people all broke down. "Big brother, can you stop talking?" Chapter 1203. The so-called familiarizing oneself with the venue was actually to experience the environment in advance. The environment of the venue wasn't bad, and one could basically see everything from a high vantage point. The reason why everyone chose to walk around was because they wanted to walk around the venue and catch up with old acquaintances. After all, everyone was in the same circle. They might be enemies in the factory, but they had a good relationship in private. The esports circle wasn't a lifetime buyout system, and who knew when they would become teammates? There was no harm in building a good relationship. Although the people from Quanjin sect weren't part of the gaming circle, they were still considered influential figures in the game. At this moment, they saw many familiar faces such as Blood Alliance, World Domination, and other large guilds that they had interacted with before. Everyone was present. In fact, when the Quanjun sect walked out, the group even encountered Nian Luyin and Icy Jade's group. This group of people seemed to be the representative team of the second region. Their team name was very unique, something like Fighters Don't Cry. A bunch of uncultured people who came up with such a lame name. After leaving the venue, Chuanjin and the others didn't have a place to play. They usually talked about the game, and after returning from the venue, they went back into the game. The Pro League had come to an end, and the atmosphere in the game was very different from before. The streets of the main cities were filled with banners, especially in the main cities with participating teams. The banners were printed with the team's flags, and it looked very spectacular. This was especially true for Afterglow City. A mere city like this actually had 3 teams participating in the competition. It was incomparably arrogant. Of course, the most eye-catching thing was the Quanjin sect's extremely eye-catching Ox 13 war flag. It was simply the nightmare of all the players in Afterglow City. If it weren't for the fact that the Quanjin sect was infamous, everyone would have wanted to tear down this disgusting war flag. On the 3rd day, the day of the competition finally arrived. At such an exciting time, Chuanjin obviously wouldn't laze around in bed. They woke up early in the morning, washed up, and gathered at Wang Yu's room, ready to enter. But at this moment, Evil Snort carried a box into Wang Yu's room. Then he shouted, "Come, come, come. Everyone, share it." "What is this?" Everyone was confused. "Uniform." As he spoke, Evildoers Run Wild fished out a piece and threw it to Wuji. "Try it on and see if it fits." Wuji took the clothes and skillfully opened the packaging. When he opened it, he was dumbfounded. The color of the clothes was the color of feces yellow. Wuji was too lazy to complain about this. The key was the logo on the clothes. It was so bright that it blinded everyone's eyes. The yellow clothes were already old and ugly, and there were even a few ancient Chinese characters printed on the clothes with incomparably bright red cinnabar. At the front was written Supreme of Wulin, and at the back was Kung Fu. The words were red on a yellow background. It was exactly the same as the scribbles sold by the monks and Taoist priests in the tourist area. Wuji was so embarrassed that he clutched his clothes and asked with a trembling voice, What the hell are these things? They're so stupid." Kung Fu, Wulin, these terms had long been separated from superstition in this era. When a normal person saw such a logo, they would think that it was printed with a certain Xiong Professional Technical College for immortal cultivators. They had already broken away from being a Chinibyu and entered the realm of stupidity. The motto of Chuanjin had always been that one could be crazy, but one could not be stupid. Instead of letting Wuji wear these clothes on stage, it would be better to let him wear female clothes. At least people would not think that he was stupid, right? Not only Wuji, but the other members of Chuanjin were also stunned on the spot when they saw the team uniform. After a long time, Chun Xiang asked while trembling, "Are we going to wear such stupid clothes on stage? There are close to 100,000 people here. It's too embarrassing. Not only that, we can watch the live stream in the game. There will be hundreds of millions of people watching us act stupid." Wuji shed silent tears. "Stupid? I think it's pretty." Wang Yu picked up the clothes in Wuji's hand and compared them to his body. He threw it to Wuji and asked Evildoers Run Wild, "Do you have 5Xs?" "Yes." Evildoers Run Wild rummaged through the box and pulled out a large one for Wang Yu. Wang Yu put it on happily. Everyone was speechless. What kind of F***king aesthetic was this? Wuji gulped and asked Evildoers Run Wild, "Brother Yao, can we not wear this?" "Yes." Evildoers Run Wild nodded. "That's good." Wuji had just felt relieved when Evildoers Run Wild said, "But I don't have the final say. When the time comes, my dad will bring a group of martial arts legends to watch the competition. If you don't wear it, I can't guarantee your safety." Wuji clenched his fists. The Chuanjin members broke down. Martial arts legends. F***CK. They had definitely messed with a tough character. Right on the heels of that, Evildoers Run Wild added, "Don't even think about escaping. The leader of Swallow Faction is here too. None of you can escape." "Swallow Faction?" Everyone was stunned. "What's that?" Yang Na explained, "It's a sect that practices Qigong. Do you see that we're on the 4th floor? Nothing will happen to them if they jump down." "Yeah," Wang Yu echoed. "It's said that their sect's Qigong has reached the pinnacle. There was once an expert from Swallow Faction who jumped from the 30th floor. F***CK. Isn't it just acting dumb? We'll go all out." Everyone's hearts turned cold. They hurriedly pulled out their uniforms from the box and put them on. Damn it. Jumping from the 30th floor was more than 100 meters. With this ability, it was basically equivalent to flying in the sky and burrowing into the ground. After everyone put on their uniforms, Yang Na asked curiously, "Who jumped from the 30th floor?" Why haven't I heard of it? You're still young. You probably didn't even remember when he fell to his death, Wang Yu said. After everyone put on their uniforms, Wang Yu asked again, "Where's our team flag?" "It's here." Evildoers Run Wild grabbed the alley and flipped it over. A dark red flag fell to the ground. Hung Xing picked up the flag, grabbed one end of it, and pulled hard. The retractable flagpole was pulled out from the ground. Printed on the flag was the infamous battle flag of the motley crowd battle team, Bull 13. Oh my God! Wuji rubbed his forehead. He was about to faint. This was a F*King flag that was designed at the last minute. Everyone had been careless and didn't think that they would need a battle flag to enter the competition. Who would have thought that Wang Yu would be so thoughtful and even get someone to make a battle flag? The competition was about to start. It was too late to make a battle flag. Wuji decided to just throw caution to the wind and shouted, "Forget it! Since we're embarrassing ourselves, let's just throw it all away. We'll take this battle flag. Let's go. Go, 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 go." Chapter 1204. Rebirth's popularity was undeniable. Such a huge arena could accommodate tens of thousands of people, and all the seats were filled. The fans of the various teams held up banners, each taking their own side. Under the lead of the staff, all the teams entered the arena one after another. Every time a team entered the arena, their support group would shout their slogan loudly. The atmosphere in the arena was pulled to the highest point. Under such a commotion, Chuanjin's group wore the martial arts attire of the Supreme of Martial Arts and carried the Bull 13 battle flag. They staggered as they followed the main group into the arena. In an instant, the originally noisy arena became dead silent. Following that, the laughter almost tore the roof off. F*CK. Which team is this? What the F*CK are they dressed up like? Are they filming a movie? Who knows? Looks like it's an amateur team. They're probably not strong enough, so they're using unique outfits to attract attention. If that's really the case, it's obvious that they've won. F*CK, a bunch of hype dogs. Facing the boos from the audience, other than Wang Yu, who was strutting forward, the rest of Chuanjin's team lowered their heads, wishing they could stuff their heads into their pants. Even Yin Luyin and the others, who had already entered the arena, could not help but break out in cold sweat when they saw Wang Yu's team's outfits. They thought to themselves, "This bunch of idiots, what are they doing?" After all the teams entered the arena, the host began to introduce the teams one by one. At that moment, most of the teams in the arena were veteran professional teams. Since the audience could afford to spend so much money to watch the competition, they were definitely experienced players. They were naturally familiar with these teams, and were even more familiar with them than the host. The teams that everyone was unfamiliar with were the commoner teams that represented the 15 battlefields in the game. Therefore, the host did not forget to mention the glorious achievements of these teams when introducing them. The teams that could enter this arena, even if they were commoner teams, were all strong experts among the player community. Although everyone did not know them, once their names were mentioned, the audience would still find them somewhat familiar. They would all exclaim, "So, it's them." When it was Chuanjin's turn, the host held back his laughter and explained, "The motley crowd team is Yu Huiqing's team from the 7th battlefield. They are from the same city as Blood Army and Qianningshan. Their guild is Chuanjin." Hearing the host's words, the audience could not help but become excited. Chuanjin, F*CK. So it's this group of lunatics. No wonder they're dressed like retards. They really live up to their reputation. The host cleared his throat and pointed at Wang Yu. The leader of the mob is the legendary number 1 expert, Iron Ox. So this is Iron Ox. The audience cheered again. Wang Yu's name was still very famous among the veteran gamers. Moreover, he had unsealed a divine artifact a few days ago, and his popularity had yet to die down. Now that they saw Wang Yu in person, the gamers were also very excited. The host was also very good at handling things. Seeing that Wang Yu's appearance had caused such a huge reaction, he smiled and asked, "Guru Iron Ox, I heard that you are the number 1 expert in the game today. Do you have any secrets?" "Secret?" Wang Yu thought for a moment, then made a pose and said, "Because I know Kung Fu." Huh? The host was stunned. What? Kung Fu? Wang Yu turned around and let the host see the two big words behind him. Then, he turned around and pointed at the martial arts supreme in front of him. He raised his fist and said, "Do you understand?" This time, not only the host, but the audience on the stage were also dumbfounded. The host said awkwardly, "Is it like those on TV where you can knock down a large group with a wave of your hand?" "No." Wang Yu shook his head and said, "Real Kung Fu is about the unity of the waist and the horse. The so-called unity of the waist and the horse is explained by the great martial artist Mr. Bruce Lee in my heart." "Then, can you show us?" Seeing that Wang Yu spoke like a lunatic, the host wiped his sweat and hurriedly interrupted. Wang Yu smiled. "I'll show it during the competition later." "Then I'm looking forward to your performance." Under the boos of the audience, the host walked to the next team with a blank face. Wang Yu turned around and saw that Qianjin was far away from him. He could not help but ask, "Where are you guys going?" "The Qianjin people." "Who are you?" "Where am I? Do we know each other?" After introducing the teams, the major teams returned to their seats. Next, it was time for the host to give a speech and various leaders to say a few words. Of course, these could not be written. Even if the Culture Review allowed it, the readers would tear my skin off. So, without further ado, let's get straight to the point. Let's talk about the competition sneaking around again. The host still had some conscience after all. They were not shameless enough to mix the amateur teams with the professional teams to be abused. According to the competition process, the representative teams from each region would compete first. The 15 teams would then fight it out. The final winner would be the amateur champion of the league. Moreover, the amateur champion could compete with the professional masters. This seemed to be a lot fairer, but the competition was also a little more intense. After all, everyone came here to compete with the professional masters. Now that there was only one person they could compete with, the threshold was obviously much higher. After the introduction of the process, it was time to draw the teams for the competition. Pada. After a soft sound, the lights in the arena dimmed. Two beams of light descended from the sky and landed on the seats of the representatives of the 15 regions. "Begin." As the host gave the order, the two beams of light quickly switched back and forth between the seats of each team. "Stop." The host gave the order again. The rapidly switching beams of light began to slow down and finally landed on the seats of the two teams. It was unknown whether it was lucky or not, but Qianjin was the first to compete. At this time, the host also announced, "The first team to compete is Yu Huiqing's ragtag team from the 7th region and Shadow of Sorrow's team from the 10th region. Both teams, please enter the arena." After the host finished speaking, the two teams were led into the competition room by the staff of the venue. In the competition room, there were 2 rows of huge game cabins specially used for competitions. These game cabins were much more high-end than helmets, so they were naturally expensive. Not only that, for a company like Longting Company that created games with its heart, all the players who logged in with the game cabins would receive a special bonus in terms of experience and reputation. Of course, only professional masters and rich people could afford to use these things. The reason why it was said to be specially used for competitions was that these game cabins did not bind the identity of the players. Instead, they used more advanced technology to scan the players and read the game information of the players. Therefore, they could be shared. This way, the fairness and rationality of the game could be ensured. Chapter 1205. After entering the gaming cabin, the characters of the two sides were transferred to the arena. At the same time, the projections of both sides appeared in front of the audience. The rules of the official Pro League were the same as the previous qualifiers. First would be individual battles, then would be tag battles, and finally would be the team battles. The final result would be determined based on points. The only difference was that the bags of the players in the Pro League were sealed and no items were allowed. This was understandable. If they didn't do this, they wouldn't be able to show off their competitive nature. For players like Hole of the Winds and Clouds who had all sorts of strange items in their hands, they could teleport all over the field as if they didn't cost anything. There was no point in competing. So in the Pro League, players could only use their true abilities to show off their competitive spirit. According to the rules, Qianjin was the host for the first match, so they had the first pick of the map. So in the first individual battle, Qianjin would choose the map. According to the rules, the first match was to test out their opponents. After all, teams that could enter the Pro League were definitely not weak. Therefore, the Quanjin sect chose the smallest arena for the duel. The first player to go on stage was also the weakest player in the Quanjin sect, Ming Jian Daoxue. The first player from Shadow of the Morning was also an assassin called Shadow Killer. Compared to famous Sword Snow, Shadow Killer's name was much more imposing. After choosing their players, the two were transported to the arena. Shadow Killer wore a gray mask, had a hunched back, and had a wretched look in his eyes. With such a unique aura, one could tell that he was a qualified assassin. On the other hand, famous Sword Snow was covered in shining gold equipment. He held his head high, and his expression was like a warrior's. He didn't have the awareness of an assassin at all. Even though their auras were different, the two's fighting style was very similar. After the countdown, famous Sword Snow and Shadow Killer activated stealth at the same time. Suddenly, the two of them turned into two shadows in the arena. It couldn't be helped. They were assassins, so their starting moves were all stealth. Especially against people of the same class, they couldn't expose themselves. But what happened next was the most boring scene in the history of the Pro League. The audience sat in the audience seats and had an omniscient view, so they could see the shadows of the players. On the other hand, the two players on the stage couldn't see each other at all. In addition, the first two guys to fight were probing, so they were more cautious when they fought. After the competition started, Minkin Daoxue scurried to the side of the stage and hid in a corner, staring at the competition. Dark Shadow Killer seemed to have discussed this with famous Sword Daoxue. He also turned around and ran to his own corner to observe the situation. Seeing the two wretched fellows hiding and not moving, the audience was dumbfounded. F***CK. Everyone had been watching competitions for so many years, and it wasn't uncommon for assassins to fight assassins, but this was the first time they had seen such a fighting style. It was no wonder that people often said that low-end children had more fun. Compared to professional players, the amateur players' amateurishness was vividly displayed. If it wasn't for the fact that they were in a professional arena, everyone would have thought that they were watching a spring festival gala skit. A minute passed, and neither of them moved. The audience started to get impatient. 3 minutes passed, and the two of them still hadn't moved. The audience began to shout, "Mother of Kerr, hurry up and hit him, stab him in the balls." 5 minutes passed, and the audience was tired. They sat in their seats and started to doze off. The teammates of the two teams stared at the empty stage for 5 minutes, and their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. They started to feel uneasy. The tickets for the professional arena were so expensive. If they played like this, they would be slapped with a brick. After a few more minutes, Minkin Daoxue and Dark Shadow Killer finally became impatient. They stretched out their hands and moved towards the center of the arena. Of course, Minkin Daoxue relied on his good equipment and the ability to enter stealth twice, so he was more confident and walked toward the other side while standing. Dark Shadow Killer, on the other hand, fully displayed the carefulness and wretchedness of an assassin. He actually walked forward with his butt in the air and one hand on the ground. They're moving. They're moving. The two of them finally started to move. The audience's eyes were brimming with tears. It was as if they had seen a person in a vegetative state who had been lying down for 10 years sit up and talk. The audience members who had already fallen asleep heard the shouts of the audience beside them and quickly sat up. Luckily, the stage wasn't big, and the distance between the two of them was getting closer. The audience's hearts were getting more and more excited, and they started to count down for the two of them to meet. At first, it was just in their hearts, but in the end, they actually shouted at the same time. 3 steps, 2 steps, 1 step, but just when everyone thought that the two of them were going to fight, Dark Shadow Killer miraculously crawled past Minkin Daoxue's legs. F***CK. Seeing this scene, the audience broke down. But at this moment, Minkin Daoxue seemed to feel someone slip past his leg. He froze for a moment, then bent down and stabbed his dagger into the ground. At the same time, Dark Shadow Killer suddenly stood up and dodged Minkin Daoxue's stab. Then, He turned his arm and swung his dagger horizontally behind him. But Minqian Daoxue was bent over, and Dark Shadow Killer's dagger brushed past Minqian Daoxue's back. Just like that, the two assassins strangely dodged the first attack for both sides. The audience sighed. Although the two's attacks didn't work, after the first attack, the two of them confirmed that their opponents were right beside them. So, they closed their eyes and swung their daggers. Minqian Daoxue thought that Dark Shadow Killer was attacking the bottom three, so he subconsciously squatted on the ground, afraid that he wouldn't be able to protect his ass. Since Minqian Daoxue was standing, his body was elevated, and his dagger was aimed at the target's heart. The two of them crossed paths again, brushing past each other again, and their attacks missed. Just like that, two more attacks missed. At this time, the audience on the stage was completely dumbfounded. Was this really not rehearsed? Heavens, I can't believe it. I paid the ticket price to watch the Pro League, to come here and watch the Crossroads. At this time, Minqian Daoxue, who had failed to hit his opponent several times in a row, was a little anxious. After thinking for a moment, he simply ran to the edge of the stage. He leaned against the edge of the stage and canceled stealth, exposing himself to Dark Shadow Killer's vision. Seeing his target, Dark Shadow Killer was slightly stunned. Although he didn't understand what Minqian Daoxue meant, he still activated swift movement and raised his dagger as he charged over. After all, more than 10 minutes had passed. Dark Shadow Killer's patience had long since worn out, and he wanted to end this boring farce. Now that his target had appeared, he naturally wouldn't let him go. If he waited until his target's stealth cooldown ended, he would be in a passive position. Chapter 1206. At this moment, Minqian Daoxue's lips curled up into a smile. Shadow Killer felt a chill in his heart. Duan. Shadow Killer's dagger stabbed into Minqian Daoxue's body, but didn't deal any damage. At the same time, Minqian Daoxue disappeared in front of Shadow Killer. Disappear. Seeing that Minqian Daoxue disappeared, Shadow Killer was shocked. Disappear was a level 60 assassin's ultimate skill. Obviously, Shadow Killer hadn't learned it. Moreover, Shadow Killer, who had just canceled stealth, was still on cooldown. He was now exposed to Minqian Daoxue's vision. Famous Sword Dao Shui took the opportunity to run behind Dark Shadow Killer. Raising his dagger, he used Gouge to stun Dark Shadow Killer. Then he used Backstab Slit Throat, Tendon Pick, Bone Break. A series of combos quickly landed on Dark Shadow Killer's back. Minqian Daoxue had a full set of exquisite equipment. His attack power was extremely high, and his back was the weakness of all classes. Assassins also had the bonus of attacking from behind. After a series of combos, Shadow Killer turned into a white light and appeared below the stage. First round, Minqian Daoxue won. The audience let out a long sigh of relief. Damn, this match was too tiring. The first 10 minutes of boredom overshadowed the brilliant counterattack at the end. Everyone was glad that this map was an arena. If it was a larger map, they would have to ask the organizers for a refund. Because of this, the audience's impression of the two teams on the field had also become extremely bad, especially the Quanzhun sect's disgraceful moves. Now, in the eyes of the audience, they were already synonymous with shameless and lowly. The second to go up was Exquisite Dream. This girl's strength wasn't much higher than Minqian Daoxue's, but she was a girl. They couldn't let her go first. Xuanjin still wanted to save face. The opposing player was called Shadow Stinger. Just from a name, it was obvious that he was another assassin. Moreover, he was an existence that complemented Shadow Killer. This assassin was dressed the same as Shadow Killer and had the same wretched temperament. After going up, he made a provocative gesture to Exquisite Dream. This couldn't be blamed for Shadow Stinger's arrogance. After all, archers were always countered by assassins, and they were a class that relied on terrain. If it was a forced terrain, archers and assassins might still have the power to fight. As for the narrow arena, archers in this terrain were basically equivalent to sending themselves to death. The match began, and the Shadow Stinger disappeared into stealth. Upon seeing this, Linglong Dream retreated to a corner of the arena and crouched on the ground. At this moment, in the eyes of the audience, the shadow of the Shadow Stinger was activating swift movement, raising his dagger as he charged at Exquisite Dream. Sigh. As the Shadow Stinger approached, the audience could not help but sigh. In this scenario, the archer was at a huge disadvantage. He didn't know what Qianjin was thinking. Were they only thinking about how to attract people's attention? However, just when everyone, including the Nether Shadow Thorn, thought that Linglong Meng would die without a doubt, they heard a pa sound and the Nether Shadow Thorn was frozen in place. It's a trap. The audience was shocked and couldn't help but cry out. Shadow Stinger felt a chill in his heart. As he struggled to break out of the trap, he swung his dagger at Exquisite Dream. Exquisite Dream flipped forward and dodged to the back of the Shadow Stinger. Then, she kicked the Shadow Stingers but with Raiding Foot. Raiding Foot had the special effect of stopping the opponent within a short distance. The Shadow Stinger screamed and was pushed into the corner of the arena. Whoosh! Immediately after, Exquisite Dream blew a whistle and a giant multicolored tiger appeared under Exquisite Dream's feet. With a command, the giant tiger pounced on the Shadow Stinger. Damn, this is the Beast King Hunter's pet summoning skill. Seeing Exquisite Dream summon a pet, the audience also recognized Exquisite Dream's skill and were greatly surprised. The pet summoning skill book was very rare. They didn't expect that a random girl from Qianjin would have this skill. This skill book was given to Exquisite Dream by Yang Na when they were fighting in the faction dungeon. Exquisite Dream had never lacked damage output teammates, so she had never used it. This was also the first time she used it. The less she used it, the lower the attack power of the pet. It looked like the giant tiger was ruthlessly biting the Shadow Stinger's head, but after chewing for a long time, the Shadow Stinger's HP had only dropped by half. The trap only lasted for 10 seconds. By the time the Shadow Stinger reacted, Exquisite Dream still wouldn't be able to fight back. Who would have thought that Linglong Meng would not be in a hurry? She bent down and placed a row of traps in front of her. Thorn Trap, Freezing Trap, Foot Trap, a bunch of traps that restricted the opponent's movement. The Shadow Stinger was now in the corner of the arena. Although the range of Exquisite Dream's traps wasn't large, the quantity caused a qualitative change. This F*King row of traps was placed side by side, directly blocking the Shadow Stinger in the corner. When the Shadow Stinger turned around and saw the trap array behind him, he was sweating profusely. God knows how an archer had so much MP to set up traps. Exquisite Dream sneered. She raised her crossbow and aimed at the Shadow Stinger. Son of a B***. This is a democratic society. You can choose the trap you want. The Shadow Stinger looked at the trap on the ground, and then at the giant tiger that was biting his head like a popsicle. His eyes were filled with despair. The range of the traps was small, and there were many limitations. However, the controllability of the traps was the longest out of all the skills. Now that the Shadow Stinger was blocked in the corner, from the cooldown of Exquisite Dream skills and the control time, Exquisite Dream would definitely be able to stop the Shadow Stinger from moving a single step before he was bitten to death. Damn it, underestimating the enemy was the death of me. The Shadow Stinger sighed and chose to surrender. Exquisite Dream won the second round. In this battle, Exquisite Dream won the competition with a huge disadvantage. Moreover, Exquisite Dream was a seemingly weak female player. This was a proper victory for the weak. Compared to the boring assassin duel in the previous round, this was many times more exciting. It immediately attracted a burst of cheers from the audience. Seeing that the crowd was so lively, the host knew how to find an opportunity to shout, "Everyone, give a round of applause to this lady." The crowd applauded. Under the cheers of the audience, Exquisite Dream proudly returned to her team. Unlike the cheers of the audience, the Qianjin players were a little surprised and asked Exquisite Dream, "Why did you use traps? Wouldn't it be easier to use your binding arrows?" Hee hee. Exquisite Dream laughed and said, "I have to conserve my strength. Everyone starts with the small cards. Who would use a trump card right from the start?" "Makes sense." Everyone nodded and then mocked famous Sword Snow. "It's obvious that Snow is the small card." F***CK. Famous Sword Snow waved his dagger in protest. At this moment, Wuji turned around and asked everyone, "Who's going for the next round?" Everyone shook their heads. "Whoever wants to go can go. I'm not going." Chapter 12:07. Meow, this group of bastards just mocked famous sword Dao Xue. Wouldn't anyone who went up now prove that they were weak? Xuanzhen's group was organized and undisciplined. They could talk about a strike at any time, so it was reasonable for them to refuse to go up in order to not be weak. Evildoers Run Wild saw that Xuanzhen's group was acting up again and immediately became anxious. "Damn, you guys can't do this. There are level 10 martial arts masters watching in the audience. You don't want to die with me, do you?" Everyone naturally did not want to be beaten up by martial arts masters. They were stunned for a moment, then pointed at Wuji and said, "Then Wuji will go." It had to be said that Xuanzhen's group was surprisingly unanimous when it came to tricking Wuji. They were probably the only ones who could come up with the idea of forcing a cleric to fight in a one-on-one match. Wuji seemed to have thought of it long ago. He was not surprised at everyone's choice. Evildoers Run Wild looked at Wuji helplessly and said, "Then you go. Anyway, we've won twice. It's okay to lose one match." "Are you kidding me? How can I lose?" Wuji sneered and went up the ring. As soon as Wuji went up the ring, the audience was surprised again. Damn, the third to go up is actually a cleric. What is this motley crew thinking? No matter how restrained an archer was against an assassin, at least an archer was considered a damage dealer, while a cleric was a proper support profession. Letting a cleric go up was basically equivalent to giving away points. Could it be that these guys were paid? Just as everyone was wondering, the countdown ended and the battle officially began. Wuji's opponent was called Shadow Destroyer, and he was still an assassin. It was said that Shadow City was the nest of assassins, and it was indeed a well-deserved reputation. There were actually so many assassins in a team. Having learned his lesson from the previous match where Shadow Stinger had been blocked by his opponent due to his love rival, Shadow Extinguisher didn't dare to underestimate his opponent in the slightest, even though his opponent was a cleric. As soon as the countdown ended, Shadow Destroyer activated stealth. However, Wuji was one step faster. He raised his staff and cast a Holy Mark on Shadow Destroyer's head. Holy Mark was a level 45 priest skill. If used before the target was invisible, it could mark the target. Although it couldn't be considered an anti-stealth skill, it was one of the most effective skills against assassins. After being imprinted, a symbol appeared above the Shadow Destroyer, and its position was completely within Wuji's grasp. Seeing this, Shadow Destroyer canceled his stealth and charged at Wuji. Unhurriedly, Wuji gave himself an invincible buff, then turned around and ran. Shadow Extinguisher was delighted to see Wuji's back exposed. He activated swift movement again. Just as Shadow Destroyer was about to catch up to Wuji, Wuji leaped and leisurely floated into the air, flying above Shadow Destroyer's head. Assassins were elusive and had high damage output. However, their weakness was relatively obvious. They had short hands. If a mage really flew in the air and beat up an assassin, the assassin would have no way to fight back. Shadow Destroyer was shocked to see Wuji fly up. He hurriedly stopped and retreated to avoid Wuji's attack range. Fly had a limited time, and Shadow Destroyer could wait for Wuji's skill to cool down. However, Wuji didn't give Shadow Destroyer the chance. He chuckled and activated the priest's awakening skill, Martyrdom. Martyrdom was an aggro-pulling skill. For 5 seconds, it could make all the enemy targets and skills within a 500-kilometer forcefully attack the caster. The priests in Rebirth were definitely a great setting. There were all sorts of skills like self-destruct and blocking damage. To sum it up, they didn't care about their lives. Although this skill sounded pretty nonsensical, it was extremely overpowered when used together with the invincibility of the Holy Light Shield. 5 seconds seemed very short, but even if thousands of troops attacked Xuanzhen's group at the same time, Wuji could still protect everyone. Shadow Destroyer was right under Wuji's feet, and his range was definitely within 500 meters. Before Shadow Destroyer could retreat, He had already floated up involuntarily, stabbing his sword into Wuji's stomach. Wuji leisurely flew out of the stage. Martyrdom ended, and Shadow Destroyer fell off the stage with a plop. System notification. Third round. Motley crowd Wuji wins. What the F***? The audience was dumbfounded. Was it so hard to watch a proper match? Below the stage, Shadow Destroyer's eyes were indifferent, as if he hadn't reacted. His expression was clearly saying, "Who am I? Where am I? What are you guys doing?" Looking at the dumbfounded Shadow Destroyer, the audience had a look of pity. If he lost, then so be it. He actually lost in such a strange way. How pitiful. Of course, there were exceptions. For example, Wang Yu's father asked the group of old men beside him smugly, "See that? This is the team we sponsored. They're very strong, right?" Qianzhen's group won 3 matches in a row. Although their methods were inferior, they gained face for Wang Yu's father. All the martial arts experts wiped their sweat and agreed. Yes, a gentleman fights with his wits, not his strength. Old Wang, you didn't choose the wrong person. When Wuji returned to the team, he heard Chun Xiang say with a grin, "Old dog Wuji is as cunning as ever. Chicken, give me the money." Mother Kerr, why aren't you dead yet? To place one's pride, glared at Chun Xiang and took out a bag of money, handing it to Qianzhen's group. "You lost money again?" Wuji patted to place one's pride's head sympathetically and said, "How many times have I told you? Don't play with them. Come, Uncle will take care of you." Scram. To place one's pride rudely slapped Wuji's hand away and said gloomily, "Why aren't you dead yet?" Humph. Wuji sneered and said to everyone, "Let Chicken fight the next match. If we don't fight this kind of small character now, he'll just be a burden to us." Makes sense. Seconded. +1. Everyone nodded in unison. Mother Kerr. To place one's pride choked. After losing 3 matches in a row, Shadow Destroyer finally saw how strong Qianzhen's group was. Archers could win against assassins, and priests could win against assassins. Everyone could see that their combat power was not on the same level. No wonder the organizers did not pay much attention to amateur experts. If they were all at Shadow Destroyer's level, there was no reason to pay attention to them. With Qianzhen's strength, it was already very difficult for them to deal with retired professional teams, let alone a team like Shadow Destroyer. Everyone in Shadow Destroyer knew that they would definitely lose this time. Therefore, the person who went up was none other than their team leader, Shadow Maniac. Shadow Maniac was a warrior, and he was also Shadow Destroyer's #1 expert. If they sent their strongest expert out, there was still a chance for them to turn the tables. At least they would not lose too badly. Chapter 12:08. Under the threat of Wuji and the others, to place one's pride carried the title of Qianzhen's laggard as he walked up the ring, swearing. After entering the ring, the first thing to place one's pride did was raise his middle finger. Whoa! The audience erupted in an instant. This kid is so young, but why is he so annoying? He actually dared to raise his middle finger in the ring. Is he trying to mock the entire world? Seeing this, Looming Shadow's expression couldn't help but turn ugly. In the previous few matches, Qianzhen had sent out an archer and a cleric to fight, which was already suspicious. Now, he was openly mocking them, showing his low moral standards. Of course, Qianzhen's people understood that to place one's pride's middle finger was actually aimed at Qianzhen's group. Rebirth was a game that emphasized strategy. To place one's pride wasn't weak at all, but this kid was too young and impatient. He could only display his true strength when he was serious. To place one's pride's equipment and skill set weren't bad, but he didn't have many outstanding battle records. Everyone was doing this so that he could fight properly. Otherwise, it would be too shameful to lose points in front of this kind of opponent. On one hand, they wanted to lose in style. On the other hand, they didn't want to be cowards. The match hadn't even begun, but the two were already bursting with energy. As the countdown ended, to place one's pride activated Collapsing Fist and rushed towards Looming Shadow. Looming Shadow wasn't to be outdone, and immediately used Charge to counterattack. The two were like raging bulls, rushing toward each other. To place one's pride was a grandmaster of combat, and collapsing fist was only an assault skill, so its priority naturally couldn't compare to charge. Just as they were about to collide, to place one's pride suddenly canceled the skill. He landed with eagle stamp, followed by a roll, dodging looming shadow's charge and appearing behind him. As a top-tier expert representing one of the 10 battle zones, Wild Shadow was no slouch. When he saw to place one's pride suddenly vanish, he canceled charge without hesitation and activated Whirlwind Slash. To place one's pride's head with his two-handed greatsword infused with battle aura. For a class as fragile as a Grandmaster of Combat, taking a Whirlwind Slash head-on from a weapon warrior was definitely not going to feel good. To place one's pride, who had originally wanted to attack Looming Shadow Frenzy's lower back with a knee strike, hurriedly crouched down and swept his right leg across the ground, hitting Looming Shadow Frenzy's ankle. Looming Shadow Frenzy, who was spinning in a circle, was suddenly hit by imbued pride. His skill was interrupted, and he staggered a few steps back. Taking advantage of Looming Shadow Frenzy's unsteady footing, to place one's pride leaped up and was about to follow up with a flash chain kick. But flash chain kick's lead-up was a bit too long. To place one's pride hadn't finished channeling his skill when Looming Shadow Frenzy had already used Quick Recover to stabilize himself. To place one's pride's leg abruptly reached out with his left arm and used Grab, dragging him in front of himself. Warriors were strength-based classes, so there were 2 stages to the grab skill. After dragging him in front of himself, he could choose to throw him in the air or on the ground. Whether he was in the air or on the ground, he could use Follow UPS, and the result would be terrifying. To place one's pride didn't even think. Just as Looming Shadow Frenzy was about to throw him into the air, his other leg followed up with a diving knee kick to Looming Shadow's chin. Bang! To place one's pride was sent flying with a dull thud. To place one's pride had used a skill when he should have used Quick Recover, so he didn't succeed and fell to the ground pathetically. However, Looming Shadow Frenzy didn't have it easy either. To place one's pride hit him head-on with a diving knee kick. He took a few steps back, and a minus 8,954 damage floated up above his head. A level 50 weapon fighter would have a total of 70,000 to 80,000 HP. To place one's pride's attack had shaken off nearly a tenth of Looming Shadow Frenzy's HP. The two had only exchanged blows for 1 round, but they were both shaken. F***CK. One amazing weapon fighter. He can actually keep up with my speed. How much agility did he add? To place one's pride was still fearful of Looming Shadow Frenzy's speed. Looming Shadow Frenzy was also fearful of to place one's pride. F***CK. Is he really a Grandmaster of Combat? If he can train a lousy Grandmaster of Combat to this level, wouldn't he be able to fly if he switched to another class? This kid is already so ferocious. Wouldn't that Iron Ox be even crazier? Thinking up to this point, the two quietly sized each other up. At the same time, the audience on the stage was also extremely shocked. Everyone had thought that this match between the spoiled brat who gave the middle finger would be as boring as the previous matches. Who knew that these two guys would fight back and forth and fight beautifully? Not to mention anything else, just the few dodging predictions just now were clearly not far from a professional standard. I couldn't tell, but that brat is pretty good. Yeah, that warrior isn't weak either. Looming Shadow of Sorrow has finally shown his true strength after losing 3 matches in a row. Looking at the two people on the stage, the audience in the arena began to discuss. Chuanjin was also a little surprised. To be able to fight a serious chick to this extent, this Looming Shadow Frenzy really is something. Yup, Master Warrior Bao San said confidently. If it were me, my attack speed and skill release would be slower. I wouldn't dare to say that I could find his weakness within 20 rounds. Tis TSK. Unfortunately, this isn't a one-man game. No matter how good a person is, they can't carry a bunch of useless teammates. Everyone sighed. Wang Yu said lightly, "That's not for sure. If their leader was me, F***CK. Everyone forcefully interrupted Wang Yu's words and said angrily, "Aliens, stay aside." Just as everyone was shocked, to place one's pride seemed to have thought of something. He narrowed his eyes and charged forward again. Looming Shadow Frenzy held his long sword in front of his chest and waited for his enemy. Eat my kick. To place one's pride roared and flew up when he was a few meters away from Looming Shadow Frenzy. Chance! Looming Shadow Frenzy was overjoyed. He grabbed the hilt of his sword with both hands and swung it up forcefully. Rising Dragon slash. He, in the air, to place one's pride, chuckled and landed on the ground with eagle stamp again. He rolled forward and rolled behind Looming Shadow Frenzy. This move again? Looming Shadow Frenzy panicked and quickly canceled Rising Dragon slash. He wanted to use Whirlwind slash like before to force to place one's pride to be unable to attack. However, the system humorously told Looming Shadow Frenzy, "Your skill is still on cooldown." F***CK. Looming Shadow Frenzy broke out in cold sweat. Although Looming Shadow Frenzy's attack speed was comparable to the place one's pride's, in terms of skill cooldown time, no class had a shorter cooldown time than a Grandmaster of Combat skill. Therefore, in a battle against a Grandmaster of Combat, one had to completely suppress him in the first wave. If a warrior fought to a draw with a Grandmaster of Combat skill in the first wave, then he would have already lost a lot. After all, a warrior would have to wait for their skill cooldown after using a wave of skills, while a Grandmaster of Combat skills would be refreshed by then. In a battle between experts, a single opening could determine the victor. While Looming Shadow Frenzy was stunned, to place one's pride grabbed Looming Shadow Frenzy's leg with ferocious tiger strike and placed him on the ground. Tyrannical Fist Dance. Following to place one's pride's roar, a sky full of fist shadows smashed into Looming Shadow Frenzy's body. After a series of skills, Looming Shadow Frenzy's health bar was reduced by a third, and he was stunned. Chapter 1209. Good. Immediately, the stadium erupted into cheers. After 4 consecutive matches, the first 3 matches were all about who was better. Finally, there was a match that everyone enjoyed watching. It should be known that Grandmasters of Combat did not have weapon or armor proficiency. Whether it was attack, defense, or attack range, they were inferior to other classes. The only redeeming feature was the short cooldown time. To place one's pride fully demonstrated the flexible playstyle that a Grandmaster of Combat should have, and taught all Grandmaster of Combat players a lesson. Even Lurking Frenzy, who was stomped to death by to place one's pride, accepted his defeat. It couldn't be helped. Skill cooldown time was an advantage for Grandmasters of Combat. This was something that external factors could not greatly change. Team Shadow of Amorn was very open-minded. After Lurking Frenzy was defeated by to place one's pride, he very calmly offered to surrender. The first match ended in a complete victory for the Ragtag Bunch. No one was surprised by Shadow of Amorn's choice. After all, an expert like Lurking Frenzy was defeated. Even if they continued fighting, the result would not change. It was just a pity that Lurking Frenzy was an expert. Of course, opportunities were always given to those with ability. The audience for the Pro League was not limited to gamers. The managers of the various teams would also come to look for players with potential. Both Lurking Frenzy and To Place One's Pride were young, and they were very skilled. Although this battle was in the amateur division, the excitement of the two was comparable to that of professional experts. After the battle, it left a deep impression on the audience, especially since these two kids were quite good-looking. They fit the packaging requirements. Many people were probably eyeing them now. After the match ended, both teams exited the gaming cabin. At this moment, Lurking Frenzy ran to Chuanjin's team and pulled To Place One's Pride. He said excitedly, "Brother, you really have some skills. It's my honor to fight with you." He, To Place One's Pride, smiled awkwardly as he glanced at Chuanjin and the others, then said, "I also feel very happy to fight with you. But as for an expert, I really can't be considered." To Place One's Pride, he looked at Wang Yu and the others. Shadowy Maniac followed To Place One's Pride's gaze and asked excitedly To Place One's Pride, "Is this Guru Iron Ox?" "Yes. Uncle Neo is the real expert. He taught me all my martial arts." To Place One's Pride replied, "Is that so?" Looming Shadow Frenzy said in surprise, Great God Iron Ox, do you have any secret to success? Secret. Wang Yu was puzzled. Does my kung fu count? Hidden Shadow was stunned. Martial arts? There really is such a thing. Of course. Wang Yu said, I'm a boxing grandmaster. Seeing that your reflexes are pretty good, do you want to learn a thing or two from me? Hidden Shadow Frenzy was speechless for a moment. He turned his head and said to the place one's pride, Brother, you go ahead with your work. We'll contact each other when we have time. I still have things to do, so I won't chat with you guys. After saying that, Hidden Shadow Frenzy fled as fast as he could, leaving behind the Chuanjian people with black lines on their faces. What kind of person is this? Seeing that Wang Yu was disrespected, Mu Zixin was so angry that she stomped her feet. It's okay, Wang Yu said calmly. There's still a long way to go to get everyone to accept Kung Fu. As long as we can show good results, when the time comes, everyone will naturally take the initiative to learn Kung Fu. Just as Wang Yu and the others were pacing back and forth in the competition room, Nian Luyun and the others walked in. It seemed like they would be in the second match. Brother Yu. Nian Luyun was more obedient and sensible. She came up and greeted Wang Yu. Hi. Wang Yu also waved at Nian Luyun. These two met like old friends, but when the others met, the scene was a little awkward. After all, Chuanjian had suffered at the hands of Icy Jade and the others. It could be said that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. When they saw Icy Jade and the others, they all squinted their eyes. It was unknown what they were thinking. However, Evildoers Run Wild was considered a foreign aid and was not counted in Chuanjian. He did not have any grudges with Nian Luyun and the others. When this guy saw Icy Jade, he smiled and went over. Hey, Little Lee, I didn't think we would meet here. Icy Jade was as arrogant as ever. Other than those who were stronger than her, she did not care about anyone else. Seeing Evildoers Run Wild go over, Icy Jade said coldly, I didn't expect you guys to make it into the professional league. Without waiting for Evildoers Run Wild to reply, Wuji coldly said, if you guys can make it into the professional league, why can't we? What did you say? The people behind Liu Jia heard this and glared at Wuji. Wang Yu silently moved to the side, blocking Wuji behind him. Seeing Wang Yu, the angry crowd immediately quieted down. Hee hee. Liu Jia glanced at Wang Yu, then looked at Wuji. Then he laughed coldly. Actually, I quite admire your courage. You guys still dare to walk on the streets dressed like this. In order to not embarrass you guys, I've decided that if I meet you guys, I will treat you well. I definitely won't let you guys embarrass yourselves until the finals. Tisich, Wuji said disdainfully. I'm just afraid that you grandmasters of combat won't even have the chance to meet us. Just pray. Liu Jia knew that he was no match for Wuji, so he coldly snorted and ignored Wuji. At this time, the staff also urged, all right, break time is over. Let's hurry up. Got it. Nian Luyun and the others replied and followed Icy Jade into the gaming cabin. Looking at Icy Jade and the others in the gaming cabin, Wuji's face was extremely gloomy. If nothing unexpected happens, these guys will be our final opponents. Wang Yu laughed. What's wrong? Are you really afraid of them? Of course you're not. Chun Xiang and the others rolled their eyes at Wang Yu. But you have to think about how we feel. It was true. Nian Luyun and the others might not be able to do much in front of Wang Yu, but they were still martial artists. Nian Luyun and Ji Shursin were not weaker than Evildoers Run Wild. As for Icy Jade, she was even stronger than Evildoers Run Wild. No matter how weak the others were, they were still martial artists. They were stronger than normal people like Chuanjian. If they were to really fight, the only ones who could fight them were Wang Yu, Yang Na, and Evildoers Run Wild. The competition was a team game. Even if Wang Yu was invincible, if he was alone, it would be hard for him to win. It's fine. Wang Yu waved his hand. I won't blame you guys for holding us back. Chapter 12:10. Wang Yu is sweating profusely. Forgive me for being blunt, but these people have been practicing martial arts since they were young. Even if you have me to teach you, you won't be their match. You might as well unplug their gaming pods. That makes sense, everyone came to a sudden realization. Unplugging is indeed a good idea. Yeah. The staff who had been standing at the side was shocked. He stared at the hostages of Chuanjin and asked, "What did you say?" Haha. Seeing that there were outsiders, the Chuanjin people quickly laughed and said, "Just kidding." Immediately after, Wuji said, "Old cow, as a martial arts practitioner, tell us where the weaknesses of martial arts practitioners." Wang Yu spread his hands and pretended to be pretentious. "I'm sorry, I don't have any weaknesses. Don't be shameless. Tell us." Everyone was furious. "If you want to talk about weaknesses," Wang Yu rubbed his chin and said, "Grandmasters of Combat belong to the agility class. They don't have high DPS and HP, and they are more afraid of crowd control. Therefore, if we can use our crowd control skills well, they won't be able to do anything even if they attack together." "Crowd control?" "Yes." Wang Yu nodded and said, "Didn't you guys notice that they are all Grandmasters of Combat?" That's right." Wuji was slightly startled and said, "I almost forgot about this. These guys are all Grandmasters of Combat. Not only Rebirth, but all online games emphasize teamwork. Every class also had its own specialty. Therefore, class allocation was very important for a qualified team. A qualified team, healer, crowd control, tank, and DPS. No matter which class was missing, there would be one more weakness. If one only chose a class based on which class was good at one-on-one fights, it was estimated that 90% of the players in Rebirth would choose to play the Assassin class. The Grandmaster of Combat class seemed to be very versatile, but in fact, it was a versatile class that did not stand out in many aspects. Thinking about it carefully, it also had the most weaknesses. No matter how good Clear Ice and the others were, if they only had one Grandmaster of Combat class, they would not be able to make up for the shortcomings of the class. After understanding this point, everyone in Chuanjin was in a good mood. They happily walked out of the competition room and went to their respective seats. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Even if he knew the weaknesses of Crystal Clear Jade and the others, he still had to know how strong they were. At that moment, the match had already begun. Nian Luyuan was standing in the arena. The audience's cheers and exclamations came wave after wave, as if they were going to lift the roof of the arena first. Wang Yu and the others were extremely puzzled. Weren't the cheers of the audience a little too exaggerated? Could it be that they were paid to act? Of course, what the Chuanjin team didn't know was that during their own competition, the audience's curses were much more exaggerated than this. The few of them returned to their seats. At this time, Nian Luyuan also threw his opponent out of the arena. At that time, the voice of the MC rang out in the arena. First round of the competition, Grandmasters of Combat, Don't Cry team wins with a score of 5 o'clock. Pooh! Hearing the MC's words, Evildoers Run Wild, who was holding a cup of water, spat it onto the heads of the audience in the front row. At the same time, he said in a daze, F***CK. The first 5 matches are over? How can it be so fast? At this time, the player next to Evildoers Run Wild said excitedly, "Yeah, it's that fast. This Grandmasters of Combat, Don't Cry team is really amazing." Really? Evildoers Run Wild was sweating profusely. From the time Crystal Clear Jade and the others entered the gaming pods to the time when the Chuanjin team returned to the audience seats, less than 5 minutes had passed. 5 matches in 5 minutes, including some messy things. Could it be that every match was going to be an instant kill? Of course it's true. The player said excitedly, "I didn't expect the Grandmaster of Combat class to be so powerful. If I knew this, I would have chosen Grandmaster of Combat too." As he said this, he looked at Evildoers Run Wild and said, "I envy you. You still have a chance." What chance? Evildoers Run Wild was confused. Becoming their disciple. F***CK? Evildoers Run Wild's forehead swelled up. At the same time, Wang Yu, Wuji, and the rest of the Chuanjin team also learned about the 5 matches from the audience. The arena was the same as Chuanjin's arena. However, the difference was that Pure Ice Jade's group was extremely efficient in their attacks. Without exception, all of Pure Ice Jade's group's opponents were thrown off the stage within a few seconds of the match's countdown. His speed was fast, and his methods were ruthless, causing everyone to be flabbergasted. While everyone was still in shock, the second round of the wheel race began. After a series of random choices, Crystal Clear Jade was transported to the arena with a great spear in hand. This time, the arena was a wrestling ring. Although it was much bigger than the previous arena, the field of view was the same as the arena, extremely wide. Pure Ice's opponent was a tall and sturdy shield warrior. That shield warrior's face was valiant, and the tower shield in his hand was shining brightly. One look, and anyone could tell that it was no ordinary item. After the countdown ended, he charged towards Pure Ice without saying a word. Crystal Clear Jade stood in place with his great spear behind his back and coldly looked at the charging warrior. Just as the warrior was less than 3 meters away from Pure Ice Jade, Pure Ice lightly flicked her spear backwards. Holding the spear with both hands, she thrust it diagonally towards the warrior and flicked it upwards. The warrior was involuntarily sent flying. This move is very familiar. Everyone looked at Wang Yu. Wang Yu seemed to have used this move before. Wang Yu laughed. Azure Dragon playing with water, the Leaf family's ultimate spear technique. As he spoke, the warrior was flicked into the air by Crystal Clear Jade. Crystal Clear Jade took 2 steps forward and went around the warrior's shield. At the same time, she fiercely stabbed upwards with her long spear. Pucci, the great spear of Pure Ice and Jade, pierced right between the warrior's thighs. Hiss! Seeing this scene, everyone's anus tightened and they sucked in a breath of cold air. The way they looked at Crystal Clear Jade became extremely strange. In Rebirth, after a player was knocked into the air, they could quick recover. The warrior was not weak either. At this time, as long as he adjusted his balance, he would be able to get out of being knocked into the air. However, Crystal Clear Jade's move was too vicious. After being stabbed in the vitals, the warrior was only concerned with fear and did not have the thought of quick recovering. At that time, Crystal Clear Jade grabbed the end of the spear and fiercely smashed it downwards. The poor warrior was heavily thrown onto the ground. A circle of stars appeared on top of his head. It seemed that he had fainted from a fall. Crystal Clear Jade stepped forward and stepped on the warrior's arm. She aimed the great spear in her hand at the back of the warrior's head and stabbed several times. Bang, 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 bang. After a series of hits, a string of numbers floated above the warrior's head. Immediately after, he tragically turned into a white light. After killing her opponent, Crystal Clear Jade once again stood up with her spear. Her face was expressionless, as if she had done something insignificant. Hua. Chapter 12:11. Pure Ice and Wang Yu were the same. Both of them were children of big clans. She had a special aura about her. As a martial artist, she had an indescribable confidence. Coupled with Pure Ice's extremely beautiful appearance, Pure Ice could be said to be perfect. As the saying goes, beauty is justice. Such an outstanding girl, nobody dared to imagine what she would do in a fight. At this moment, Pure Ice's display of strength was definitely out of everyone's expectations. Moreover, Pure Ice was an extremely arrogant woman. After killing her opponent, her face was as cold as ice and her heart was as still as water. She immediately captured the hearts of thousands of boys and girls. This girl, she's too handsome. I want to give birth to a monkey for her. Everyone in the audience clenched their fists. Watching Pure Ice on the stage, they were extremely excited. Seeing the audience's reaction, Wuji spat in disdain. You guys are not the ones who died. As he said that, Wuji recalled the scene of Pure Ice's opponent's tragic death and felt a chill run down his spine. This kind of woman, perhaps only someone like Wang Yu, who was even more ruthless, would be able to control her. Just as everyone was exclaiming in admiration, the second opponent was also teleported onto the stage. Pure Ice's skills could be said that among the younger generation, other than Wang Yu, there were few who could rival her. Moreover, the Li family's martial arts were more suitable for gaming. In gaming, there were probably only a few who could beat Pure Ice in a one-on-one fight. The result of the match was naturally predictable. In just one round, The pure ice and jade elite's opponent was pierced through by her spear, causing her heart to turn cold. The third, the fourth, the fifth, compared to the first two, the next three didn't have the slightest improvement. They all went up, counted down, closed their eyes, and were stabbed to death from the beginning to the end. Pure ice had an expressionless face. She didn't feel happy or sad, as if the 5 people who were stabbed to death had nothing to do with her. That incomparably powerful aura shot up to the sky, causing the entire audience to be moved. Cold, cold spear. No one knew who cried out in surprise, but soon everyone followed suit. Cold spear, cold spear. Those who did not know better would have thought that it was an A-list god going on stage. Even the people of Chuanjin looked at Wang Yu, Yang Na, and evildoers run wild with strange expressions. This girl is too arrogant. Which one of you will go and destroy it later? Yang Na and evildoers run wild turned to look at Wang Yu. It was obvious that the two of them knew that their skills were far from pure ice and pure jades. Wang Yu rubbed his chin and said with a faint smile, "This girl has improved a lot recently. It seems that she has put in a lot of effort." "Even you can't beat her?" everyone exclaimed. "Are you kidding me?" Wang Yu said shamelessly. "Didn't I say it before? If hard work is useful, why do we need geniuses?" Everyone pursed their lips. Clear Ice Jade's aura was so strong that not only did it intimidate everyone, it even scared the opposing team. Now that their morale was low, even if they continued to fight, the result would be a tragedy. Therefore, once the second round of matches ended, the opposing team immediately chose to surrender. Motley Crowd Battle Team and Fighters Don't Cry Battle Team both advanced to the next round. These two battle teams, one extremely lowly and the other extremely strong, left a deep impression on the audience. However, the following few battle teams did not have much of style. Everyone fought in an orderly manner. From a technical point of view, teams that could make it into the Pro League were not weak. However, amateur teams were still amateur teams. Compared to professional teams, they were still lacking. It could only be said that these people were playing quite well. The matches lasted from 10 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. Excluding lunchtime, they played for more than 5 hours. Finally, the 7 matches of the amateur teams were over. Including the lucky teams that were not in the next round, a total of 8 teams advanced to the next round. The first day of competition was considered to have ended successfully. After leaving the venue, just as Wang Yu and the others were about to return to the hotel to rest, Bao San's eyes suddenly became dazed. He looked not far away and called out with a blank expression, "Xing Xingzhu, what pig?" When everyone heard that, they looked at Bao San in confusion and thought to themselves, "What's wrong with this guy?" Meanwhile, Wuji followed Bao San's gaze and looked over. His expression turned a little ugly as he said, "It's not a pig. It's Xingzhu. You know Ruan Xingzhu, right? The one in teacher Jin Yang's novel." Immediately after, Wuji said unhappily, "Why is this chick here? What's going on?" After hearing Wuji's explanation, everyone was even more dumbfounded. Could it be Bao San's ex-girlfriend? Just as everyone was imagining things, a voice came from not far away. "Bao San, is that you?" Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw an elegant girl with long hair waving at Bao San. When Bao San heard that, he trembled in excitement and said, It's me. It really is his ex-girlfriend." Seeing this scene, everyone retreated behind Bao San. They narrowed their eyes and pricked up their ears. The expression on their faces was clearly one of gossip. At that moment, the girl pulled a tall and handsome man in a suit over. Everyone looked at the handsome guy behind Miss Xingzhu, then looked at Bao San, who was wearing the martial arts world supreme yellow coat. Their hearts could not help but skip a beat. In terms of hardware, Bao San could not keep up. When she came in front of everyone, Miss Xingzhu revealed a sweet smile and said, "It's really you in the competition today. I almost couldn't recognize you dressed like this. This coat is really interesting." Ugh! Hearing Xingzhu's words, the Chuanjin people's expressions darkened. This girl looked harmless, but why did she speak without thinking? She touched a sore spot and said that in front of her boyfriend. She was clearly trying to embarrass Bao San. It's provided by the sponsor. I have no choice but to wear it, Bao San said nervously. Oh, Miss Xing Zhu looked at the Chuanjian people in surprise and said, amateurs like you have sponsors? Were they after? F***CK. Now, the Chuanjian people could tell that this girl was here to cause trouble. Just for fun. Faced with Xing Zhu's aggressiveness, Bao San said hesitantly. Seeing that his brother was being bullied, Wu Ji could not stand it anymore. He took over and asked, Little Zhu, didn't you go overseas? When did you come back? Hearing Wu Ji's words, Xing Zhu hurriedly replied, So, big brother Wu Ji is here too. Her tone was filled with surprise. The Chuanjian people were speechless. They whispered, F***CK. Her acting is too fake. Wu Ji is standing beside Bao San. Is this girl blind? Chapter 12:12. I didn't want to come back either. Xing Zhu pretended to be angry. Then, she pointed at the handsome guy behind her and said, My fiancé came back for a competition, so I followed him. His name is Mark. He's a professional gamer. Hello, brother Mark. Bao San smiled bitterly and extended his hand. Mark ignored Bao San and looked at the Chuanjian people with a smile. He said calmly, Hello, I watched your competition. It was very interesting. His tone was like a god giving advice to a newbie, and his face was full of pretentiousness. The Chuanjian people naturally did not give face to such a pretentious prick. They all looked away. Seeing that everyone was disdainful of Mark's identity as a professional gamer, Xing Zhu smiled and said, Mark is not only a professional gamer. He's also the son of the CEO of XX Company. You know XX Company, right? Their boss and Chairman Ma of Longting Corporation are relatives. The Chuanjian people were speechless. This lady looked nice, but after saying a few words, her ignorant and superficial temperament was completely revealed. Nobody was comparing with her. What was she showing off for? Everyone had their own ambitions. It was human nature to pursue fame and fortune. If one did not like a useless homebody like Bao San, nobody would force them. However, it was wrong of them to come and mock him. Of course, the matters between men and women were not clear. Everyone could only watch and not help each other. However, hearing that this Mark was a relative of Chairman Ma of Longting Corporation, Ma Li, who had been staring at Xing Zhu with an unfriendly expression, sneered. Is Chairman Ma's relative very powerful? Oh, this is? Xing Zhu glanced at Ma Li and asked curiously. Before Ma Li could answer, Chun Xiang introduced. This is Ma Li, Bao San's fiancé. The chairman of Longting Corporation is her father. F***CK. The moment Chun Xiang said that, everyone from Chuanjian nearly choked to death. Even someone as calm as Wu Ji almost couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. Chun Xiang, this F***er really dared to brag. Why didn't he say that he was Ma Longting? However, hearing Chun Xiang's words, Ma Li and Xing Zhu were stunned. Then, they revealed a shocked expression. Obviously, Xing Zhu did not believe it and was 70% disdainful. Ma Li, on the other hand, asked Spring Soar in surprise, How did you know? Seeing that Ma Li was so cooperative, Chun Xiang said confidently, Of course, it was Bao San who revealed it to me. He also told me not to tell anyone, because he was afraid that his lowly ex-girlfriend would borrow money from him and pretend to be a rich second generation. Xing Zhu's face darkened when she heard that. It could be said that Chun Xiang was the most despicable person in the Quanjin sect. With just a few words, he was able to smear Xing Zhu from the inside out. That. Wu Ji held back his laughter as he asked Xing Zhu, I've said what I wanted to say, and I've shown off what I wanted to show off. Now, you have nothing else to say, right? Xing Zhu said awkwardly, I just wanted to catch up with Bao San. Brother Wu Ji, you misunderstood me. Wu Ji said lightly, It's a pity that our third master doesn't have time to bother with you. All right, if you're fine, we're still busy. Let's go. With that said, Wu Ji gave the Chuanjian people a look, and they dragged Bao San back to the hotel. Only Xing Zhu and Spring Soar were left at the entrance with their mouths agape. Thank you, everyone. When they returned to the hotel, Bao San's mood was much better. He thanked everyone, then looked at Ma Li and said, "I'm sorry." Molly was a very cheerful girl. She waved her hand indifferently and said, "It's not a big deal. If the three of you are willing, I can be your girlfriend." Ugh. Bao San blushed. Li Shui and the others tugged at Ma Li and said, "Restrain yourself. Restrain yourself." Chun Xiang, the gossipy guy, stuck his head out and asked, "San, is that really your ex-girlfriend?" "Yes." Bao San nodded, his eyes filled with loneliness. "Young man, you don't have good taste. Why did you find such a lowly one?" Chun Xiang curled his lips. Everyone present was an educated person. This kind of blatant flaunting really made everyone feel very uncomfortable. She wasn't like this in the past. Bao San defended himself. "Isn't that so?" Wu Ji snorted and said, "If she was like this from the beginning, would you have raised her abroad for 3 years without holding her hand? In the end, you even got kicked by someone. Even now, you're still afraid of women. Mind your own business." Bao San was furious. "If I don't care about you, who cares about you?" Wu Ji also slammed the table hard. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, everyone hurriedly pulled them apart. Now, everyone finally understood. No wonder Bao San was usually neurotic and ruthless towards women. So there was such a story behind it. Even an upright official would find it difficult to settle a family feud. Everyone had their own emotional experiences. Some girls like scumbags, while some boys like pretentious bitches. Everyone understood this logic, but this was a psychological problem. It could only be seen through by oneself. No one could help, so the only thing everyone could do was not mention it. After pulling the two of them apart, Bao San left the hall with a dark expression. Molly looked at Bao San's back as he left. She wanted to say something, but stopped herself. She said with a complicated expression, "He'll be fine, right?" Wu Ji said angrily, "Don't worry about him. He's just like that." "Poor parents." Mingdu sighed. Everyone's eyes widened. "Brothers." Mingdu hurriedly changed his words. Everyone had traveled thousands of miles to participate in the competition. Naturally, they would not let such a small matter ruin their spirit. Early the next morning, Bao San acted as if nothing had happened. Seeing that Bao San had calmed down, everyone was sensible enough not to bring up those unhappy things. The group of people chatted and laughed as they went to the arena. Today was the second round of the amateur competition. The rules of the competition were still the same. Random draw. The arena darkened. The lights fell and began to flicker. No one knew if it was intentional, but Xuanjin's ragtag team was placed in the first round again. Their opponent was the Lucky Team that had a bye the day before. That's right, the team's name was Lucky Team. However, it was obvious that they had used up all their luck yesterday. The next day, they met Xuanjin. Both teams entered the arena. The referee began to introduce the players. Then, it was 3 consecutive matches. There was no doubt about the results. Xuanjin was as shameless as ever. They broke through all the obstacles and won the competition without much effort. After 4 matches, another 4 teams were eliminated. After 2 more rounds, Ragtag Team and Don't Cry Team, the Grandmasters of Combat, easily made it to the finals. The audience was not surprised that Crystal Clear Jade and her team could make it to the finals. After all, these Grandmasters of Combat had shown their strong combat power in the beginning. However, the fact that Xuanjin and his team could be so shameless was beyond the audience's expectations. It should be known that these amateur players were celebrities in their respective battle zones. They were not weak. After a few rounds of elimination, those who could stay in the arena were all strong. Chapter 12-13. The break time was over, and the 2 teams entered the arena. As the last match of the amateur group, this match was especially important to both teams. After all, only the winner could fight against professional-level players. Most importantly, these 2 teams represented the glory of the North and South martial arts world. The audience also showed unprecedented anticipation for this match. The martial artists Don't Cry team swept through the entire tournament. Their strong strength left a deep impression on everyone, and Xuanjin's shameless and despicable style was also deeply rooted in people's hearts. Regardless of whether these two teams were professional players or not, the wretched asterisk cheese being trampled on by experts was something that everyone loved to see. Let's welcome the martial artists Don't Cry team. Following the host's invitation, the projections of the Ice Clear Jade team appeared on the arena one after another under the anticipation of the audience. The audience followed and cheered loudly. It was the last amateur competition, and the gimmick was very good. The host catered to the curiosity of the audience and introduced with a magnetic voice. The martial artists Don't Cry team is a new team made up of all martial artists. Their captain is the legendary Cold Spear Ice Clear Jade team. The team has never met a worthy opponent since their debut. They use their actions to defend the dignity and glory of martial artists. Just like their team name says, martial artists never cry. Although the host's words were half true and half false, it made people's blood boil. Especially for the martial artists who had been discriminated against and oppressed, they could feel the same. Hearing the host's words, everyone was moved to tears and cheered loudly for the martial artists Don't Cry team. After the introduction of the martial artists Don't Cry team, the Chuanjin team was also transported into the arena. Seeing the members of the Quanjun sect swaying left and right and whispering to each other, the spectators immediately booed. This group of wretched fellows was still acting sloppily on the competition stage. It was truly an eyesore to look at. The host was speechless for a moment, then introduced, "The Motley Crowd team is also a new team, but their members are the fearsome Chuanjin team in the gaming world. As the saying goes, are you done or not? Start." When the audience saw that the host and his collaborator were trying to stall for time, they couldn't help but fly into a rage and protest. As the saying goes, the audience is the Jade Emperor. Seeing that everyone was indignant, the host hurriedly stopped talking nonsense and said cleanly, "The competition begins." The two teams finally entered the battlefield. According to the usual practice, the Grandmasters of Combat Don't Cry battle team would choose the map for the first duel. Crystal Clear Jade's group had fought against Chuanjin before, and had also watched all of Chuanjin's matches. They knew that this group of people would do anything to win, and were extremely difficult to deal with. Thus, Pure Ice Jade didn't even think about it, and directly chose the arena as the setting for the first match. Seeing the map that Pure Ice Jade had chosen, the audience could not help but exclaim, "Wow!" As expected of Cold-Face Cold Spear, he is indeed brimming with confidence. It should be known that in the few matches that Chuanjin had won, the first map that they had chosen was the arena. From this, it could be seen that Chuanjin's group had a deep understanding of this setting. Now that Pure Ice had chosen this map, in the eyes of the average player, it was obvious that she knew how difficult it was to deal with Chuanjin's strong points. However, seeing that Pure Ice had chosen the arena map, Wuji's expression darkened. This girl is really hard to deal with. In terms of individual strength, other than a few people from Chuanjin, no one was a match for Pure Ice and her group. In this kind of overwhelming strength, the arena was the most important factor in reducing the gap. The bigger the arena, the more things that could be used. The reason why Chuanjin had always used the arena as their home ground was so that the other strong teams would subconsciously avoid this map when choosing the first map, giving Chuanjin some room to maneuver. Who would have thought that this girl Pure Ice would instantly see through Wuji's intentions? Choosing this map was undoubtedly a direct confrontation. After thinking for a while, Wuji said calmly, "Brother Chun, you go first." Chun Xiang was a hand controller and had a strong damage output. Compared to the others, he had a much bigger advantage in this arena. "Okay." Chun Xiang nodded and went to the arena with his staff. On the side of the fighters Don't Cry team, the one who went up was a fighter with the ID of Dragon Zealing. This Dragon Zealing had also gone up in the previous matches. His fist techniques were very ruthless, and his close combat skills were quite strong. However, this kid was younger than a place one's pride, so his fighting style was quite aggressive. Seeing that his opponent was Dragon Zealing, Chun Xiang rolled his eyes and greeted him from afar. "Little friend, why did your team send you up? Are you bullying a kid?" Playing a match was about calming one's emotions. Whoever was agitated would lose half the battle, So calming the opponent's emotions before the match was also a skill. Being teased by Chunxiang like this, Dragon Zealing immediately retorted, "Did the people from Chuanjin know that they can't beat you, so they invited their parents?" Dragon Zealing himself was very taboo when people talked about age, so he instinctively felt that it was also taboo for others to talk about age. He thought that insulting Chunxiang's age would make Chunxiang angry. Little did he know that this kind of taunting couldn't break through Chunxiang's defense at all. Not only was Chunxiang not angry, he even said with a smile, "Yeah, they said that the kid talks too much nonsense, so they let me, as their parent, go up and take care of him." When it came to insulting people, Dragon Zealing was still very inexperienced. Chunxiang's casual words made Dragon Zealing have a cheap father and immediately caused Dragon Zealing's anger to erupt. "Motherf asterisk Kerr. You son of a b asterisk tch. Do you want to die?" Dragon Zealing was so angry that he pointed at Chunxiang's nose and cursed loudly. Hearing this, the audience couldn't help but feel speechless and mourn for Dragon Zealing. Insulting and provoking the morale of the audience before a match was a tactic that had existed since ancient times, but insulting people like Dragon Zealing was not allowed. Everyone knew that Chuanjin was a despicable person, and this kid still jumped at the slightest provocation. Wasn't this playing right into their hands? How pitiful. Sure enough, seeing that Dragon Zealing's insults were getting more and more unpleasant, Chunxiang smiled and raised his hand, shouting, "Hey, hey, hey, referee, does this count as a personal attack?" Yes. The referee pulled out a red card with a dark expression. Dragon Zealing was immediately banned and kicked off the ring amidst his insults. The system announced, "First match, first round, Chuanjin Chunxiang wins." The audience in the ring had tears streaming down their cheeks. There was no end to this, was there? Why did they have to face this bunch of bastards from Chuanjin? Why was it so difficult for everyone to watch a proper match? Chapter 12-14. Not only did the audience on the stage collapse, but the Chuanjin players were also dumbfounded. F***, Brother Chun, what kind of explanation is that? Chunxiang said proudly. "This is the art of winning without a fight. You guys still have to learn." Well said. The crowd applauded Chunxiang. On the Grandmaster combat side, Bleak Jade and the others poked Dragon Zealing's head and scolded, "You idiot! Why do you care about him? He scolded me first." Dragon Zealing said with a wronged expression. The crowd was furious. "You still dare to quibble? Why wasn't he sent off when he scolded you? Go and reflect on yourself." Dragon Zealing's little friend was despised by the crowd. With tears in his eyes, he sniffled and squatted in the corner. After such a ruckus, Icy Pure Jade could see that although her subordinates were strong, when it came to cunningness, none of them could compare to those from the Chuanjin sect. After some thought, Bleak Jade said, "No matter who goes up later, no one is allowed to talk to the Chuanjin people. Do you hear me?" Understood. With the lesson from Dragon Zealing, everyone was still fearful and remembered Bleak Jade's teachings in their hearts. "As long as you remember," Bleak Jade sighed. "Then little Nian will go up for the second round." Nian Luyan had a good personality and was calm. She had fought with Chuanjin the most, so she was the one Bleak Jade trusted the most. With a flash of white light, Nian Luyan was teleported to the stage. Wuji whispered a few words into Mingdu's ear, and Mingdu also went up with a smirk. Other than Wang Yu, the person Nian Luyan interacted with the most in Chuanjin was Mingdu. Nian Luyan knew that Mingdu talked a lot of nonsense. Seeing that the opponent was Mingdu, Nian Luyan subconsciously took a few steps back and covered her ears. For martial artists, hearing was a very important sense, especially against mages, who had to rely on their ears to distinguish the mage's chants. After covering her ears, Nian Luyan stared at Mingdu, raising her guard to the highest. When Mingdu saw that Nian Luyan was on guard against him, he didn't say anything but stared at Nian Luyan intently. There must be a reason behind this abnormality. Seeing that Mingdu did not say a word, Nian Luyan also began to feel nervous. After all, Nian Luyan had personally experienced how wretched those guys from Chuanjin were. In particular, Long Zieling had been tricked by Chun Xiang before the match had even started. This made Nian Luyun even more wary. At that moment, her entire focus was on Mingdu. She did not even pay attention to the countdown. However, the moment the match began, Mingdu suddenly moved. He raised his hand and pointed behind Nian Luyun. It was common knowledge that when a person was overly focused, their thoughts would easily follow their target. Under normal circumstances, Nian Luyun would definitely not pay attention to Mingdu's small movements. But now, Nian Luyun's entire mind was on Mingdu. Any small movements from Mingdu would cause Nian Luyun to make a big move. As Mingdu raised his hand, Nian Luyun's heart tightened, and she hurriedly turned around. At the same time, Mingdu raised the staff in his right hand, and a thick bolt of lightning descended from the sky. Thunderstorm was Radiant City's most powerful single-target attack skill. With Radiant City's magic damage, even the thick-skinned shield warriors would not be able to withstand it, let alone Nian Luyun, a weak Grandmaster combat who had added points into agility. Boom! There was a loud sound. Before the poor Nian Luyun could react to what was going on, Mingdu blasted her into pieces and teleported her off the stage. Seeing the sudden change in the scene, Nian Luyun was at a loss, as if she did not know what had happened. Icy Jade rubbed her forehead, looking as if she had nothing left to live for. The expressions on the faces of the others were also incomparably complicated. What was sullen? What was helpless? It was vividly reflected on the faces of Icy Jade and the others. It cannot be helped. Their abilities were clearly far superior to their opponents, but they did not even have the chance to attack before they were knocked off the stage. That kind of feeling of collapse was definitely not something an ordinary person could imagine. It cannot be helped. The people from Xuanzhen were definitely not the opponents of these Kung Fu kids. However, when it came to the rules of the game, these Kung Fu practitioners were still far from it. Looking at the expressions of Icy Jade and the others not far away, Wu Ji sneered, "Humph, don't cry yet. You'll be crying later." F***CK. Seeing that the people from Xuanzhen were playing tricks again, the audience was instantly enraged. What the F***CK is this? This is too shameless. Do you dare to fight for real? The angry audience waved the cans and mineral water bottles in their hands and shouted loudly, "Xuanzhen are shameless. Get out of the gaming circle. Xuanzhen are shameless. Get out of the gaming circle." The curses went straight to the sky. If it were not for the security guards maintaining order, the people from Xuanzhen would have been beaten to death on the spot. Faced with such a torrent of negative comments, the people from Xuanzhen proudly cupped their fists towards the audience. "Thank you. Thank you. We did not do enough." Of course, the ones who were having the most headaches were the organizers. Ever since the professional league was included in the Olympics, they had never seen such shameless people in so many years. What was even more infuriating was that these people's actions did not violate the rules. Even if they wanted to forcefully kick them out of the game, it would not make sense. Seeing that the crowd was in high spirits, swearing to get rid of Xuanzhen, the organizing committee had to temporarily pause the game and hold a small meeting midway. 10 minutes later, after a vote by the organizing committee, Xuanzhen's actions did not violate the rules. They could still continue the game, and the previous 2 games were still valid. However, before the game, they were not allowed to use any provocative words or tricks. The rule of trash talking before the game had been maintained for so many years, but today, because of Xuanzhen, they were forced to change the rules. This was definitely an unprecedented behavior. With regards to the decision of the organizing committee, the people from Xuanzhen expressed their attitude to the audience. If we are not good enough, then we are not good enough. It has nothing to do with the rules. Even if we are not allowed to speak, we will still win. With just one sentence, they turned themselves from the cheater to the victim. The despicable behavior and shameless words really showed the audience what it meant to have no bottom line. A farce was a farce after all. After some commotion, the game continued. Who's going for the next game? After being defeated by Xuanzhen 2 games in a row, the morale of the martial artists Don't Cry team was low. There was a shadow in their hearts, and no one dared to go for the 3rd game. It was not that they did not have confidence in their own abilities, but they were completely afraid of Chuanjin's shamelessness. After all, it was not shameful to lose to someone who was stronger than you, but it was shameful to lose to someone who was far weaker than you. Sigh. Seeing everyone's expression, Crystal Jade sighed and said, "This group of shameless people is just trying to hurt our morale. Looks like I have to go for the third game." Chapter 12:15. Seeing that their boss was about to step onto the stage, everyone said with tears in their eyes, "Big sis, don't get tricked by those shameless people." "Don't worry," Crystal Jade said proudly. "In the face of absolute power, all schemes and rules are just paper tigers. We're counting on you." Everyone bowed to Crystal Jade. In Xuanjin's camp, Wuji rubbed his chin and asked the crowd, "Do you know how to completely defeat the opponent?" Completely defeat? How? Everyone was confused. Kill people, destroy their hearts. Wuji gestured with his hand over his heart and said, "They must be desperate now. In the third round, they will definitely try their best to win. We have to make them despair." So, everyone tilted their heads and looked at Wang Yu. "That's easy." Wang Yu clenched his fists and said, "Making people despair is my specialty." As he said that, Wang Yu selected the third round. Both sides had chosen their team members. At the same time, the host's voice rang out, "The next contestants are the Grandmaster of Combat, Don't Cry, Cold Spear, Crystal Jade, and the world's #1 Grandmaster of Combat, Iron Ox. Let's welcome the two of you." With a flash of light, Crystal Jade and Wang Yu appeared on the stage at the same time. Seeing the two people on the stage, the audience's restless mood finally calmed down. They said happily, "This time, we can finally watch a serious match." But someone said with lingering fear, "That big guy won't act shamelessly like he did in the previous rounds, right?" Guru Iron Ox is a famous expert. Logically speaking, all experts care about their reputation. He shouldn't be that shameless. But no matter how strong he is, he's still an expert from Xuanjin. Hiss. At this point, everyone began to worry again. Of course, everyone's worries were unnecessary. The reason why Xuanjin acted shamelessly was because they knew that they were not strong enough. That was why they took the edge. If all of them were as strong as Wang Yu, no one would miss the opportunity to show off in front of hundreds of millions of people. With Wang Yu's ability, if he had the time to think of ways to cheat others, he would have already finished them off. Simple and violent, that was Wang Yu's style. However, when the members of the Don't Cry battle team saw that Crystal Clear Jade's opponent was Wang Yu, they couldn't sit still any longer. Others might not know how ruthless Wang Yu was, but how could martial artists like them not know? Back then, when the 7 of them fought against Wang Yu, they were still beaten to the ground. Now, that there was only Pure Ice and Jade, it would be a little tricky. Pure Ice and Jade were the same as Wang Yu. They were both arrogant and unruly people, but they had a firm heart towards martial arts. Failure wasn't scary. What was scary was the fear in the heart. Although she knew that her opponent was a strong person like Wang Yu, Pure Ice still pulled out a spear. The design of this spear was different from the weapon she usually used. This spear was fiery red, and there were 2 wings of fire at the spearhead. Light surrounded the body of the spear as if it was wrapped in flames, giving it an imposing aura. When the Pure Ice Jade pulled out her spear, it exuded a faint aura of power. It's the Heaven Feather Phoenix Spear. As soon as Pure Ice's weapon appeared, Nian Luyun and the rest couldn't help but exclaim. This Heaven Feather Phoenix Spear was an epic equipment dropped by a level 100 boss Crimson Phoenix that Nian Luyun and the rest had worked together to kill in Skyplume City. Usually, Pure Ice used it to train her skills, so she never used it. This was the first time Nian Luyun and the rest had seen her use it. Her intention was obvious. She wanted to tell Wang Yu, "You don't have to hold back. I will go all out." Going all out was a form of respect for the opponent. In order to show his respect for Pure Ice's martial heart, Wang Yu casually swapped his glove for a halberd. The halberd was black and shiny, as if there was a black dragon entrenched on it. Whether it was the appearance or the shape, it was extraordinary. This was the dragon halberd that Wang Yu obtained from killing Long Outyin. After Wang Yu and Chopper had recast it, it had fused with Wang Yu's glove, becoming the dragon halberd form of the glove. Buzz! Facing the pressure of the Heaven Feather Phoenix spear, the dragon halberd let out a clear whistle and pushed back the faint aura. The atmosphere on the stage became serious because of the confrontation between the two. The countdown ended, and the match began. She kicked the end of the spear and held it in her hand. Then, she leaped up and charged toward Wang Yu like a beam of red light. Wang Yu was calm and composed. Seeing Pure Ice take the initiative to attack, he calmly took half a step back, grabbed the end of the halberd with one hand, and knocked it upwards. Clang! Wang Yu's dragon halberd was heavy, and with a clear sound, it knocked Pure Ice's spear to the side. He then took a step forward, raised his left hand, and hit Pure Ice's head. The Pure Ice Jade leaned to the side and stabbed her spear into the ground. Her legs kicked off the ground, and she flew straight towards Wang Yu's back. She then swung her spear at the back of Wang Yu's neck. As if he had eyes behind his back, Wang Yu grabbed the dragon halberd and swung it behind him, perfectly blocking Pure Ice's attack trajectory. Bang! With a dull sound, the heavy dragon halberd smashed into Pure Ice's spear. Pure Ice, who was in midair, had nowhere to borrow strength, and was sent flying. At that moment, Pure Ice landed on the ground with eagle stamp, and swung her spear upwards, drawing an arc towards Wang Yu's back. Wang Yu crossed his legs, turned around, and dodged the attack. Using his body as an axis, he swung his dragon halberd horizontally towards Pure Ice. Pure Ice knew that she was no match for him, and hurriedly jumped back a few steps to increase the distance between her and Wang Yu. Only then did she not get hit by Wang Yu's halberd. Amateurs enjoy the show, while experts appreciate the technique. No matter if it was the martial artists in the audience or the younger generation of the martial artists, they all showed expressions of surprise when they saw the match between the two. In the eyes of normal people, the two had only exchanged one round of blows. But in the eyes of martial artists, it was extremely dangerous. If they were not careful, they could be stabbed in the vitals. Luckily, this was a game. If it was in reality, this kind of match would not be allowed. As the saying goes, a month with a stick, a year with a knife, and a lifetime with a spear. Out of all weapons, spear techniques are the hardest to learn. Killing and being killed are easy, but to be able to control and release the spear as freely as the two on the stage is extremely difficult. Wang Yu and Li Qingshan were both younger generation in the martial arts circle, and they were about the same age. Even if Pure Ice's spear technique was a bit childish compared to Wang Yu's, their martial arts made the elders on the stage feel that the younger generation should be respected. Elderly, your family has a good daughter. The old men on the stage all complimented the Li family's ancestor. How shameful! Elderly sighed. I still can't compare to that kid from the Wang family. Ha ha ha! Old Cow rubbed the back of his head. His smile almost reached the back of his head. Oomph! On the stage, Pure Ice coldly snorted, lifting something heavy as if it's light. Great skill, but I can't believe you've already reached this level. Why aren't you attacking me? Are you looking down on me? Chapter 12:16. Arrogant. Even though Pure Ice knows that she is no match for Wang Yu, she still dares to draw her spear. It can be seen that she is the kind of arrogant person who goes against the current. Provoked by Wang Yu's words, she became furious. She once again raised her spear and rushed towards Wang Yu. She was as clear as ice and as clear as jade, with a well-proportioned body and a handsome appearance. When she brandished her spear, it was either to the left or to the right, or to the front or to the back, up and down like a startled swan, like a swimming dragon, like Shiro. The spear in Pure Ice's hand is raised, bringing with it a sky full of spear shadows that cover Wang Yu. Like a torrential storm, Wang Yu is stabbed from all directions. However, Wang Yu is as still as a mountain. Facing Pure Ice's tide-like attacks, the dragon halberd in his hand is not panicked at all. He slashes and slashes. Even though his moves seem simple and crude, he is able to perfectly deflect Pure Ice's attacks. From the beginning to the end, his feet did not move even half a step. Great skill appears clumsy, returning to the basics. Seeing Wang use spear skills, all the kung fu experts on the stage are shocked. All of them were famous Wulin seniors. Although not all of their martial arts were spear techniques, but with 10,000 techniques as one, once one is mastered, all other will be mastered. When their martial arts reached this level, there was not much difference in any weapon in their hands. Although the attacks of the pure ice and jade hero were sharp, and the legends believed that they could block them all, but if they asked themselves honestly, there were probably not many people in the entire kung fu circle who could block all the attacks of the pure ice and jade hero as easily as Wang Yu did. A genius indeed, lives up to his name. Seeing the fight between the two, not only the insiders, but even the audience watching the show were dumbfounded. Even though the two of them fought for a long time, they did not use a single skill, and neither one of them lost any health. But no matter how amateurs they are, dodging attacks, predicting attacks, and blocking attacks can still be seen from a gaming point of view. The one who moved was like the waves of the sea, penetrating through every opening, while the one who remained calm was like Mount Tai, dealing with the myriad of changes by remaining calm. Even though they were both using normal attacks, the level of appreciation and the technical content was much higher than the ordinary player's sword against sword, sword against sword, and child's brawl. At that moment, everyone had only one thought in their minds. Damn, are we playing the same game? Why do I feel like they're playing a wuxia action game? Pure Ice Jade spear arts have been used from start to finish, but she still couldn't break through Wang Yu's defense. She was a little impatient, plus Wang Yu's dragon halberd was extremely heavy, giving off a sense of pressure. Not long after, Pure Ice Jade spear arts started to become chaotic. In a moment of desperation, Pure Ice Jade grabbed the end of the spear and shook it hard, creating 9 spear shadows. 9 Dragon's Cloud Searching Spear. Hee. Wang Yu smiled faintly, his left hand holding the halberd. His right hand suddenly grabbed forward, breaking through the 9 spear shadows and grabbing the Pure Ice Jade spear. Get down! Wang Yu shouted, his hand suddenly exerting strength. Pure Ice Jade couldn't retract her strength in time, and was dragged into the air by Wang Yu. This is impossible. Pure Ice Jade's pupil shrank. She hurriedly let go of her hands, adjusted her body in midair, and threw a punch towards Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu took a deep breath and stomped his foot. Huh! With a loud shout, Wang Yu's right elbow suddenly struck out. At the same time, Pure Ice Jade seemed to be cooperating on purpose and suddenly appeared in front of Wang Yu's elbow. Bang! With a muffled sound, Wang Yu's right elbow heavily smashed into Pure Ice Jade's chest before her fist could reach him. In the game, there's no such thing as a big chest means a big cushion. With this elbow, Pure Ice didn't even have time to make a sound and was smashed into white light. Again, when playing Kung Fu, don't play in front of Wang Yu. Compared to in-game skills, Wang Yu was better at dealing with this. To put it bluntly, Pure Ice's every move, Wang Yu knew it better than herself. Her opponent had already predicted her moves, so no matter how she fought, she would still lose. System notification, Round 3, Motley Crowd, Iron Ox wins. The scene was dead silent, as if no one cared about this result. After a long time, the audience burst into enthusiastic applause. Actually, in this match, the majority of the audience didn't understand the meaning behind it. After all, the two didn't even use a single skill, and the whole match was a flat A. However, the exciting fight had already made up for that, leaving everyone shocked. This is the end. The host wasn't done yet, and asked Wang Yu in surprise. Just now, was that the so-called Kung Fu? What was that last move of yours? One with a waist and horse. Wang Yu calmly replied, and jumped off the stage. The audience once again burst into a wave of applause. Kung Fu. I didn't think there would be such a thing in this world. Yeah, I really want to learn it. From then on, the audience finally looked at the ancient art of Kung Fu from the bottom of their hearts. Seeing the audience's eagerness to learn, the martial artists were so excited that their eyes were brimming with tears. They struck while the iron was hot and brought out the signboards of their sects. If you want to learn Kung Fu, come find us. We are the Orthodox Martial Artists. Orthodox Martial Artists. The audience glanced at the signboards of the Zhu family sect. Six Harmonies door, heart door, swallow door. They immediately curled their lips. TSK. You could tell the third-rate sect. The group of martial artists spat out blood and collapsed. Big sis, what should we do next? Are we still going to compete? Killing people, Chuanjin had completely done it. Pure Ice Jade was the spiritual pillar of their team. This time, not only did Wang Yu defeat Pure Ice Jade, he also completely crushed everyone's confidence. At this time, the martial artists Don't Cry battle team were even starting to doubt if they were a match for Chuanjin. Fight! Why are we fighting? Pure Ice Jade said, this is only the third round. Other than that one guy, their team has no other skilled players. Round 4, 13. Yes. G13 thought for a moment, then nodded heavily. G13's Kung Fu was not weaker than Pure Ice Jade's. In the game, due to the difference in equipment, his overall strength was not too far off from Pure Ice Jade's. On the other hand, other than Wang Yu, Chuanjin really did not have a worthy opponent. Of course, the quick-witted Wu Ji had already thought of this, and had already chosen his team members for the fourth round. Looking at North Cuu, who was slowly losing confidence, Wu Ji instructed, Old Yu, it's up to you this time. We've already won 3 rounds. In the next 2 rounds, we just need to stop them from pulling the score difference down. You know what to do. North Cuu nodded knowingly and smiled. Understood. Both sides had chosen their players, and with a flash of white light, G13 and North Cuu were teleported to the arena. Hee hee. Chapter 12-17. The countdown began, and the match began. Ji San stepped forward, reaching out to grab Bai Ming Yoyu. Bai Ming Yoyu naturally knew that she was no match for Ji San, so she smiled and activated stealth. Seeing this, Ji San's expression froze. He hurriedly stood still and used his senses to sense Bai Ming Yoyu's position. After playing with Wang Yu for so long, how could Bai Ming Yu not know how these people who played Kung Fu could detect the position of a stealthy opponent? Seeing Ji San like this, Bai Ming Yu hurriedly turned around, not letting her attention fall on Ji San. Unfortunately, Ji San wasn't an idiot. He took out a staff and started swinging it around, trying to deceive Bai Ming Yoyu. The stage was so small. Very quickly, Ji San's staff reached Bai Ming Yoyu. Just as Bai Ming Yoyu was about to be hit, Bai Ming Yoyu plunged her head into the ground. Is she trying to kill herself? The audience didn't understand why Bai Ming Yoyu would do this. At this moment, there was the sound of a pebble falling into the water. Bai Ming Yoyu had actually dived into the ground. F***CK. Seeing Bai Ming Yoyu dig into the ground, everyone couldn't help but exclaim. Even the pro player's attention was attracted. Isn't this Earth Escape? I didn't think that Chuanjin would have such a ruthless person. We have to be careful. Clearly, the Kung Fu that Wang Yu was so proud of was not as intimidating as a skill in the pro player's eyes. As the only player in Chuanjin who could fly, Bai Ming Yoyu was an expert in the air, sea, and land. In terms of escaping ability, even Wang Yu would have to admit defeat. When invisible, Ji San could still rely on his killing intent to sense. When he couldn't, he could still randomly swing his staff. However, this Earth Escape was a skill that no one expected. Ji San naturally didn't have any way to deal with it. Just like that, Bai Ming Yoyu didn't fight Ji San head-on. Instead, she played hide-and-seek for a full 30 minutes. The pitiful Ji San swung his staff like a solo performance, almost going crazy. When the 30 minutes were up, the two left the stage with 0 points. Ji San and the other big guys couldn't help but cry. Nian Luyun and the others felt the same, their faces covered in tears. At this moment, almost half of the Grandmasters of Combat, Don't Cry battle team, had already cried. Chuanjin's group of bastards had really committed a sin. This was definitely a textbook psychological attack. Who would have thought that the assassin, the king of PK, would be used to deliberately drag out the time? In the 5th round, it was Wu Ji's turn. When his opponent saw Wu Ji, he was already gnashing his teeth in hatred. He could not wait to beat up this shameless guy on the spot. After all, everyone knew that Wuji was the brains of Chuanjin. The bad ideas of the previous few matches were all his work. Even if they could not win the match, they could still vent their anger by beating up this Astra's start. Naturally, Wuji wouldn't give his opponent the chance to do so. At the start of the match, when his opponent was eager to beat the *T out of Wuji, Wuji casually chose to surrender. The opponent's spirit had already reached the brink of collapse, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The audience booed. The first match, 3-1, ended like a farce. Everyone had a new understanding of Chuanjin's shamelessness. Other than the third round, which was a duel between strong, what were the other rounds? Other than being shameless, they were acting shamelessly. At this moment, everyone finally understood the deeper meaning of Wuji's words. Even if the rules are changed, we can still be shameless. The game developers watching the live broadcast from the game company could not help but sigh. It's a pity that these guys didn't come to be game developers. At the same time, jokes about Chuanjin in the game spread, such as, "Don't be too serious, what's the difference between you and Chuanjin?" and so on. Chuanjin's notoriety spread far and wide, and it could be considered that Wuji's great wish was fulfilled. Even if they were to make *T, they had to make the stinkiest one. They had to be known by the whole world, and they had to be known by the whole world. Do you think we'll be beaten up by the audience if we go out now? In the lounge, the Chuanjin people also had a lingering fear. Previously in the game, no matter how many people chased after them, they would only die once. Now that they were in real life, if they were surrounded by people, how could they survive? There was a saying that went, "The day one's dream was achieved was basically the day one's life ended." Everyone understood this principle. "That doesn't include me," Wang Yu said proudly. "I didn't play cheap in a match just now. That doesn't include me. I didn't even compete." Evildoers Run Wild laughed. Wuji said shamelessly, "Of course it doesn't include me. I admit defeat. They can't even stop me from admitting defeat. Right?" Bullsh *T. Mingdu pointed at Wuji and shouted, "These shameless ideas were all your idea. You're the main culprit. Don't even think about getting involved. Quickly think of a way." Wuji thought for a while and said, "There's a way. Why don't we choose a representative to go out and get beaten up? Makes sense." Everyone agreed. That representative has to be extremely ugly and hateful. Then we can beat him up to vent our anger. At this point, everyone turned to look at Radiant City. All right. Stop talking nonsense." Mingdu changed the topic and said sternly, "How should we compete in the next match? It can't be the same as before, right?" Hee. Wuji chuckled and said, "There's no strategy for the next match, just one sentence. If you think you can win, then fight. If you can't, just run." Now that we have the upper hand, we can only leave it to fate as to how many points we can get in the second match. "Leave it to fate? What do you mean?" Everyone was puzzled. Wuji said, "If we randomly send Old Cow out in the first match, we can get 5 points. If Old Cow doesn't fight in the last match, we might not get a single point, and we might even lose points, so we have to suppress them until the third group battle." Group battle. Everyone thought for a while and said, "Can we win if we fight as a group?" In terms of overall standards, Chuanjin was far from Ice Clear Jade's group. After all, the only person on Chuanjin's side who could take charge was Wang Yu. Group battle was not a one-man game. In the previous matches, everyone could still play tricks, but in the last group battle, they could not afford to be careless. So from the beginning, everyone's goal was to get more points in the first 2 matches, and then in the last group battle, they would play hide-and-seek with their opponents in the map. As long as they could drag out the time until the end, they would win. Who would have thought that Wuji would actually place his bet on the last match? Wuji laughed and said, "They only have one Grandmaster of Combat Profession. I have a strategy to deal with them in a group battle, but my strategy must have a key factor." What key factor? Chapter 12:18. The rules of the Pro League and the qualifiers were different. There were home and away games in the qualifiers. The home team could choose the map first, and the points were calculated based on the number of wins and additional points. For example, Chuanjin, who won the first match, not only had 3 points, but they also had 5 points. It was very troublesome to calculate, and Teacher Nyo always felt confused when he calculated the points. Therefore, in the Pro League, the organizers changed the rules. The map selection was based on a rotation system. Although the home team had the right to choose the map first, the other team had to choose the map for the second match, and the third match would be rotated back. The point calculation became the most simple and crude way of calculating the number of people. If both sides tied, there would be no points. In other words, although the second match was decided by Chuanjin, even if Chuanjin could win all 5 matches, the opponent could still turn the tables if they didn't play well in the third match. But Chun Xiang frowned. If we choose a large map for the second match and only run away, won't they see through our tactics? It won't be easy for us to play the third match. Chuanjin had decided from the start that their tactics for the second match would be the same as the first. If they could win, they would fight. If they couldn't win, they would follow their heart to the end. This way, the opponent in the third match would be on guard against Chuanjin's tactics. If that was the case, it was still unknown who would win. Hee hee. Wu Ji laughed sinisterly. Well, we wanted for them to see through our strategy. Everyone, even though no one knew what was going on in Wu Ji's head, but according to this brat's personality, he would only take advantage of others and not suffer losses. He was definitely up to no good, so no one was too worried. On the other hand, Pure Ice's morale was quite low. Ji Shi-san had already walked out his pain. He scolded angrily. What do we do? Those shameless people can act shamelessly in our home game. The map they chose this time will definitely be even more shameless. It's okay. Pure Ice thought for a while, then waved his hand. Even if they're lucky and can win all 5 matches, they will only get 8 points. Moreover, this match was all based on luck. It's hard to say if they can get more points than us. What if they cheated in the third round? Nian Luyun raised her hand and asked with lingering fear. Idiot! Pure Ice Jade glared at Nian Luyun. Would you fall in the same hole twice? Moreover, the third match is a team competition. We've already decided on the setting, so they can't all go invisible and stall for time. Makes sense? Makes sense. Everyone nodded in agreement. That's why for this match, we just need to be calm. We're going to place our bets on the third match. While speaking, Icy Clear Jade's face revealed a confident smile. The break was over, and the second match began. In the Pro League, the rule of the wheel battle was to randomly pick one of the 12 players from each team to go up. This kind of rule was actually quite disadvantageous to the Chuanjin sect. After all, there were high and low levels of skill in the Chuanjin sect. The highest level was the invincible Wang Yu, while the lowest level was the invincible Mu Zixian. This represented the super high and super low levels of the game. If they picked Wang Yu, then that was good, and they got 5 points. If they picked Mu Zixian, then everyone could only accept their fate. Just as everyone expected, Chuanjin chose a setting that was very suitable for hide-and-seek, Lost Forest. Obviously, this group of people wanted to race hide-and-seek with Pure Ice and her team in the forest. To be able to bring out their shamelessness to this level, it must have been hard on these bastards. Of course, it was even harder on the author. Such a righteous bull, racking his brains on how to describe Chuanjin's shamelessness, to the point where all his hair was falling off. If it was the shameless Mario next door, it would have been a piece of cake. The match began, and the lights dimmed. The system scattered 2 beams of light and began to choose the players for both teams. In the first round, the Motley Crowd team sent out Sword Dao Xue, and the Grandmaster of Combat team, Don't Cry team, sent out Dragon Spirit. Of course, Sword Dao Xue knew that he was no match for Dragon Spirit. With a countdown of tens of thousands, Sword Dao Xue went invisible and ran into the depths of the forest. Dragon Spirit looked at the place where Sword Dao Xue disappeared with a dumbfounded expression, and then sat down on the ground, not giving chase. Seeing that Chuanjin was playing this trick again, the organizers felt a headache coming on. Originally, today's match was supposed to end at around 4 in the afternoon. If they let them drag it out, wouldn't it end at night? There was no helping it. They had already changed the rules once because of what happened with Chuanjin. They couldn't possibly change the rules again. After all, there was already a 30-minute time limit. Changing it again would be too much. But this also caused the organizers to wake up. They definitely couldn't invite such a team to compete next time. It would affect the competition experience too much. After 30 minutes, both teams came out in a draw. In the second round, it was Exquisite Dream against Ji Shursan again. As an archer, Exquisite Dream ran faster than others. Exquisite Dream was also a special archer, so the result was obvious even without looking. When a match began, Exquisite Dream shot an arrow at a tree trunk. Then, with a flash of her body, a doppelganger appeared on the tree. Unable to let Ji Shursan climb up, Exquisite Dream raised her hand, and another doppelganger appeared on another tree. After a few leaps and falls, she left Ji Shursan far behind. After 30 minutes, it was a draw again. The current situation was still 3-1. The audience was completely used to the performance of the Chuanjin team. Now, their only wish was for Wang Yu and Glacial Jade to be randomly selected. The two of them would have a more exciting match, so that they wouldn't have to sit there and watch a few hours of hide and seek. Damn it, even playing PUBG wasn't this tiring. No one knew if the system God heard everyone's prayers or if the staff tampered with it. Finally, the third light beam fell on Glacial Jade. On the other hand, Chuanjin chose Chun Xiang, who wasn't very good at running. Damn, why is it me? Obviously, as a warlock, Chun Xiang wasn't very good at one-on-one fights. Especially when the opponent was an expert like Glacial Jade, Chun Xiang felt a little guilty. If it was someone else, Chun Xiang could still run. But with the length of Glacial Jade's weapon, he would be able to run a few meters ahead of his opponent. Go, Brother Chun, don't lose too badly. Wu Ji patted Chun Xiang's shoulder to cheer him on. Mingdu also echoed, I'm so envious of Brother Chun to have the chance to fight with a beauty. Yeah, if it's me, it'll be worth it even if I die, dying under a peony. To place one's pride began to recite a poem. Then you guys go? Chun Xiang stared at the two with a dark face. The three of them said in unison, Chun, this is a chance given by the heavens. As good brothers, how can you take away someone else's love? Be brave, the heavens have the best plans. Chapter 12:19. On the field, Pure Ice carried her spear and still had that unapproachable expression on her face. Oomph. Seeing Chun Xiang opposite her, Pure Ice couldn't help but snort. In the eyes of Pure Ice and Jade, other than Wang Yu, the rest of the Quanjin sect were just a bunch of scoundrels. This was especially true for Chun Xiang. During the first match, this *TCH's actions were far more despicable than any of the Quanjin sect's players. Using a child's emotions to get someone sent off the field, this kind of shameless behavior was even more hateful than diving on the field. With Pure Ice's arrogance, she didn't take this shameless person seriously at all. As soon as Chun Xiang entered the field, he was extremely careful, squinting his eyes at Pure Ice, silently calculating in his heart. When it came to running, Grandmasters of Combat were miles ahead of Warlocks. Moreover, Grandmasters of Combat like Pure Ice liked to increase their agility, and they were more agile than normal people. If Chun Xiang ran, he wouldn't stand a chance, so he might as well fight with his life on the line. At least he wouldn't die too badly. Pure Ice's perception was quite strong. Being stared at by Chun Xiang's wretched eyes made her feel quite uncomfortable, and her mood was also very irritated. As soon as the match started, Pure Ice didn't say anything, raised her spear, and immediately swung it towards Chun Xiang. Chun Xiang squinted his eyes, seeing Pure Ice's figure rushing towards him. He hurriedly took a step back, then clumsily took a step to the side, at the same time stabbing his staff into the ground to support his balance. Pooh! Pure Ice's spear missed, stabbing into the ground beside Chun Xiang. Seeing this, Pure Ice was shocked. A line of question marks appeared on her head. Nian Luyun and the others were even more surprised. Huh? Didn't hit? Not hitting the opponent was completely normal in the eyes of normal players, but in the eyes of Nian Luyun and the others, it wasn't normal. Everyone was well aware of how good Pure Ice's spear art was. Although it could not be compared to Wang Yu's, it was still one of the best in the younger generation. Not to mention an ordinary person who did not know any martial arts. Even the people present could not guarantee that they would be able to dodge Pure Ice's spear. Coincidence. It must be a coincidence. The doubt in Pure Ice Jade's heart disappeared in a flash. Her spear missed, but she grabbed the end of the spear with one hand and suddenly exerted force. The long spear swept horizontally towards the back of Chun Xiang's head. However, Chun Xiang seemed to know that Pure Ice Jade would do this. He immediately turned into a pool of blood and drilled into the ground a few meters away, once again dodging Pure Ice Jade's attack. He dodged it again. Everyone's pupils shrank. Pure Ice Jade missed twice in a row and was enraged. She raised her spear and was about to pierce Chun Xiang with a dozen holes. But at this moment, Pure Ice Jade felt her feet sink, and she was unable to move. Crystal clear, Jade hurriedly lowered her head, only to see that a patch of thorny vines had sprouted out from under her feet, binding her feet tightly. Chun Xiang smirked and raised a staff. A green poisonous substance flew towards Pure Ice Jade hero. Seeing this, the Ice and Jade heroine's body suddenly flashed with a golden light, and the spring source poison was flicked to the side. Unbreakable golden body, the advanced skill of the warrior monk's golden bell shield, can block debuff attacks. Everyone knew that Pure Ice and Yin Luyuan were polar opposites. Yin Luyuan was extremely reliant on her in-game skills, forgetting that she was a martial artist. Pure Ice, on the other hand, was too conceited, so she rarely used her in-game skills. This was the first time that everyone saw Pure Ice use a skill from the game. To be able to dodge two of Pure Ice's attacks, and even force Pure Ice to this extent, the Grandmaster of Combat, Don't Cry Battle Squad, couldn't help but look at Chun Xiang in a higher light. Looks like this wretched guy really has some skills. After flicking away the poisonous mist, Pure Ice immediately yelled and activated her inner force. The thorny vines under her feet immediately broke. At the same time, Pure Ice flew up and jumped towards Chun Xiang's direction. Before Pure Ice could land, Chun Xiang turned around and ran backwards. At this moment, a black circle drilled out from the ground. Dark Barrier. Although Pure Ice had a lot of disdain towards in-game skills, she still had some understanding of the attributes of each class. Naturally, she knew the special effect of Dark Barrier. Shocked, she immediately used her spear to prop herself up from the ground and jumped out of the circle before the Dark Barrier rose up. As soon as Pure Ice landed, she heard a strange sound. A circle of green mist spread out with Chun Xiang as the center. Seeing this scene, everyone revealed a horrified expression. Chun Xiang was rolling and crawling on the battlefield, his movements clumsy. However, from a game perspective, Chun Xiang had the upper hand at this moment, especially the accuracy of his skills. Even professional-level players couldn't help but take a deep breath when they saw it. Although the Warlock class had more AoE skills, their skills were not targeted. Moreover, the preparation time and skill activation time were very slow. Therefore, this class had a high requirement for the player's prediction and calculation ability. Especially when facing against a class that was relatively fast, the accuracy of their skills was pitifully low. Even professional-level players wouldn't easily let a Warlock go up on stage to fight one-on-one. As a Grandmaster of Combat and a martial arts practitioner, Pure Ice's agility was obvious to everyone. Her speed was not inferior to classes like assassins and archers. But when Chun Xiang faced an opponent like Pure Ice, not only did he not fall into a disadvantage, he even advanced step by step. Skill after skill, all of them hit. This kind of prediction and calculation ability was simply shocking. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was flawless. Who would have thought that this old hooligan who played dirty in the first match was such an expert? Not only the audience, but Pure Ice also saw Chun Xiang's Toxic Nova and couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Helpless, Pure Ice rolled on the ground, dodging the Toxic Nova as poison mist and rolled towards Chun Xiang, who was not far away. Chun Xiang looked at Pure Ice with an evil smile, then turned around and ran back. As the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. Pure Ice and Chun Xiang had only fought for a few rounds, but it could be said that they were surrounded by danger. After being continuously tricked so many times, Pure Ice was also more cautious. Seeing Chun Xiang's expression, Pure Ice immediately gave up on the idea of continuing to chase and stood rooted to the ground. But just as Pure Ice stood up, suddenly his feet sank again, and he was entangled by the thorns again. Me, Pure Ice secretly vomited blood. Motherf asterisk her. This old be asterisk starred. How dare he play tricks? Chun Xiang's entanglement of thorns had a cooldown of 20 seconds. Although the cooldown was long, compared to Pure Ice's internal surge, as cooldown of 60 seconds, it was still relatively short. The entangled Pure Ice Jade really lost her ability to move this time. Young man, you are still too inexperienced. Chapter 1220. What the hell is this? Seeing a group of monsters suddenly appearing around crystal clear jade, everyone was slightly taken aback. Those who participated in the closed beta could not help but shout, "Summon imps!" It's actually summon imps. Any player who participated in the closed beta would have heard of the skill summon imps. What they did not expect was that the guy who led an army of imps to sweep across the world was actually a wretched uncle from Xuanzhen. However, just as everyone was shocked by Chun Xiang's skill, the next scene made everyone's jaws drop. Chun Xiang's imps could only attack with magic in their original state. In their demon state, they were more of a tank. Now that they had evolved into evil spirits, their attacks could be ranged and melee, and they could also deal damage. Pure Ice Jade's great spear was abnormally fierce. Naturally, Chun Xiang didn't want to let his little brothers, who had worked so hard to level up, fight it head-on. Thus, he commanded a group of evil spirits to surround Pure Ice Jade and fire magic bullets from afar. Although the Pure Ice Jade was unable to move, her hands could still move. The long spear in her hands moved left and right, blocking in front and behind. Her movements were vigorous and her defense was flawless. Although the attacks from Chun Xiang's 10 evil spirits were concentrated, the magic bullets were all blocked by Pure Ice. What the F asterisk CK? What the F asterisk CK is going on? What do you mean by there's no most abnormal, only more abnormal? What do you mean by there is always a higher mountain? This time, the audience could be said to have seen it for themselves. Even Chun Xiang was flabbergasted at this moment. Raising his staff, he did not know what to do. At this moment, Chun Xiang's control ended. Pure Ice broke free from the comfort of her feet and jumped out of the encirclement. Chun Xiang was shocked and hurriedly commanded his subordinates to fight, attempting to forcefully stall Pure Ice. Oof! Pure Ice coldly snorted and stabbed her spear into the ground. Her hands suddenly channeled chi. Bang! A circle of flames burst out from Pure Ice's body. Chun Xiang's evil spirits were immediately sent flying. A rare skill for warrior monks, True Chi Ring. It can repel all enemies within a 500-meter radius and cause damage. Not waiting for the evil spirits to fly far away, Crystal Pure Jade immediately grabbed the spear that was stuck in the ground with both her hands and kicked out with both her legs. Pung pung pung. In order not to dilute the number of words, the seventh pung was omitted. Following a series of sounds, the Ice and Jade Beauty's feet landed on the heads of the evil spirits. At the same time, a line of words appeared on top of Crystal Jade's head. Awakening, Shadowless Kick. Clear Ice Jade was also in manual mode. Her attack power was not much lower than Wang Yu's, and she was using an awakened skill. After all, Chun Xiang was a cloth-armored warlock. No matter how strong the attributes of his underlings were, they were still based on Chun Xiang's own foundation. After taking 2 big moves from Pure Ice and Jade Heroine, the poor evil spirits had their heads blown off. Now that the evil spirit was dead, Pure Ice Jade pressed down on the spear shaft with both of his hands, giving up on his weapon, and flew towards Chun Xiang empty-handed. Chun Xiang hurriedly retreated. At this moment, Pure Ice Jade activated Burst Fist in midair and rushed towards Chun Xiang's back. Chun Xiang raised his staff and threw out a cloud of poisonous mist in an attempt to struggle. However, Pure Ice Jade knew that the opponent in front of her was cunning. She lowered her head to dodge the poisonous mist and reached out with both hands to grab Chun Xiang. Knee strike, grab, uppercut, levitate, chain kick, pursuit, dragon kowtow, landing. Finally, she stepped on Chun Xiang's chest, and her fist smashed into Chun Xiang's head. Sky-dominating fist dance. Pure Ice Jade's set of consecutive attacks were all system skills that had bonus attack power. She hit Chun Xiang from the sky to the ground. Although she didn't have any weapons in her hands, Chun Xiang was still beaten to a pulp by this set of attacks. Third round, Grandmaster of Combat, Don't Cry Battle Team. Pure Ice Jade won. The audience finally got what they had hoped for and saw an exciting duel. Pure Ice Jade still had the demeanor of an expert. Chun Xiang was also defeated with honor. After killing Chun Xiang, Pure Ice Jade turned around and put away the spear on the ground. She then changed into a pair of pink boxing gloves, and her expression became serious. It wasn't hard to see that this girl's arrogance had been ground away by Chun Xiang. How was it? How did it feel? Chun Xiang got off the stage. To place one's pride, and Mingdu immediately surrounded him and impatiently asked, "Being beaten to death by a beauty, you must be very happy, right?" Chun Xiang's face was blank, as if he had been beaten silly. Wang Yu was speechless. "Enough, you two. Brother Chun is an adult. He knows right from wrong. He won't be as cheap as you two." Before Wang Yu could finish, Chun Xiang finally opened his mouth with a wretched expression. "White ho." Wang Yu was puzzled. "Why is it white?" Chun Xiang chuckled and made an expression of lying down and looking up. Thinking of Pure Ice's posture when she stepped on Chun Xiang, Wang Yu's face darkened, and he slapped Chun Xiang to the ground. "Go to hell." Pure Ice Jade won the last round and was now standing in the arena. Chuanjin's contestant for the fourth round had also been chosen, Mu Zixian. Seeing that Mu Zixian was on their side, Wang Yu and the others couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Logically speaking, everyone was really afraid that they would have to choose Gao and Mingdo, those two be asterisk cheese. With the quality of these two, it was hard to imagine what kind of shameful and conspicuous actions they would do when they got on the stage. Affecting the team's reputation was secondary. After all, Chuanjin's reputation was already so bad that it did not matter if it was worse. Pure Ice Jade was a martial artist. Her family was watching from the audience. Openly flirting with the Li family's daughter? It would probably not be as simple as getting beaten up. As the last player in Chuanjin, Mu Zixian was also very straightforward. Once on the stage, she immediately chose to surrender, and the fighters' Don't Cry Battle team scored another point. Currently, it was a 3-3 draw. Chuanjin's side began to be in danger, and everyone prayed together. God has eyes. Old cow is up this round. It was still the same old saying, God never opened his eyes, he only knew how to joke. With a flash of light, Chuanjin's fifth player on the stage turned out to be Wuji. Wuji, can you do it? Seeing that their contestant was actually Wuji, everyone broke out in a cold sweat. Damn, no matter how unsuitable Chun Xiang was for 1v1, at least his damage output was high enough, and he was dirty enough. He also had a lackey to support him. Other than being dirty enough and having two invincible skills, Wuji did not have any other strong points. If this guy went up, he would probably only end up getting beaten up. Facing everyone's doubts, Wuji smiled faintly and said, "Sure, why not? I like to bully honest people." As he spoke, Wuji was transported to the arena. Pure Ice Jade raised her eyelids, clenched her fists, and got into an attacking stance. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.